Hello, and before you get started on this episode of Zapped to the Past, we would just like to say thank you to the following people: Andy Marsh, Cole Hutchinson, David Hearn, Sven Osa, 2000 DC, Gary Heather, Roger McNally, Joshua Dove, Mark Fletcher, Etienne Wettingfield, Niall Bullitt, Alexander Gosling, Tim TJ Walker, Matthias Aberg, Phil Sowerby, Joshua K, Dominic Kendrick, Rune P, Steve Parant, Nick James, and Daniel Spreadbury. These awesome people have chosen to back our Patreon at the C64 tier, and we are hugely appreciative of the support they offer. If you want to join them and get a mention in next month's shoutout, access to our Discord server and any special releases we put out and other cool stuff, then sign up by the 18th of the month at patreon.com/zapped to the past for little more than the price of a pint of beer. Actually, it's probably less than a pint of beer right now. It's about around there. So there you go. It helps us keep playing the games so you don't have to. And just like that, the shopkeeper said, enjoy this episode of Zapped to the Past. Hello and welcome to episode 70 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you have not listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week, we looked at our first batch of games from issue 32 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were bounced by Boogie Boy, shook up by Street Hassle, and we coughed up a fur ball at Thundercats. This week, we conclude our look at the games in December 1987, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. Graham, tell us what we have going on in this episode.
In this fancy airport executive lounge with an elaborate range of Danish pastries, self-service bacon and sausages, unlimited drinks, a dual-heated platter of baked beans and scrambled egg, every type of bread roll known to humankind, and the world's crappiest Wi-Fi of an episode. We head up some tricky towers on an aquatic demolition mission in the incredible Nebulus, yawn and click our way through 5 days of boring politics in the dreary Yes Prime Minister, and scoot around under, through and beyond a complex network of scaffolding in the pretty but vacuous Implosion. We also go on a quest for circuit board parts via the medium of minigame in the awkward Discovery, develop tension headaches as we stare at the dots and lines in yet another crappy vector-based shooter with X-15 Alpha mission, and dive into the bouncy 3D isometric world of puzzles and prisms in the tough but interesting Zig Zag. If that 19th coffee and 12th pastry hasn't hit your entry price to value for money quota, and you're thinking that 10 more sausage buns and 8 beers would be just the ticket before a short flight, we grab some mates and sneak around a creepy old house on the world's first point-and-click rescue mission in the mighty Maniac Mansion, set about building some fancy spaceships for cash in the ultra-slow loading, and I really do mean slow loading, mind-numbing Earth orbit station, and deftly guide our bouncing, holidaying smiley faces to blocky safety in the clever Hyber Blob. We also take 3 boring parts of the equally boring 21 levels in the boring Pirates in Hyperspace, zoom around yet another 360 scrolling collect-em-up grabbing energy pods for a head-first dive into the heart of a star in Sunburst, before finally flexing our muscles, stepping into our Thai boxing shorts and exploring the ornate gardens of Thailand for a massive punch-up in the graphically impressive Bangkok Knights. While there are indeed some impressive games in this episode for sure, there are also some stinkers, like finding your luxury Christmas cracker gift was a comb when you're completely bald. What a rip-off.
That's it. That's it. That's your last lot of games that you're going to have to make
fancy lady.
That's it. Fancy that. That you're going to have to make up some stuff for 1987. This is it, isn't it? This is our last batch.
That's it. This is it. After this, there's no more 1987.
No, it's been erased from history.
Exactly. And I, for one, welcome our new ant overlords.
So do I. But there's some interesting stuff for this week. Hopefully we'll end on a high. Creamy middle, who knows? I don't know. Yeah, so, God. So next week, awards. We started, how many episodes do it's 28, I think, 29.
Yeah, it's a whopping load is what there is.
And some of it's been a massive load.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, some of it's been tedious beyond the realms of anything that could be called tedious.
Yeah, indeed. But I'm sure we'll have more to say on that next week when we do our yearly roundup.
There's going to be an exploration of some nightmarish crap there.
There really
also
is.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And so there has been some good stuff, yeah.
Here and there.
Here and there. Well, speaking of good stuff, maybe should we get into our first game?
Do it.
Do it. Let's do it. All right, let's get into our first game. Because our first game is the third of the 3 gold medals this month. This is, of course, Nebulus. Nebulus. Not spelt as in the normal way, just Nebulus. There you go, Nebulus. And I'm just going to come out and say it. What a brilliant game this is. What a brilliant, brilliant game. I'm just laying my cards on the table. There you go.
Well, why do anything other? Yeah, I mean, it's well known for being a good one.
It's brilliant, this is. So it's so simple. It's so simple, yet so frustrating, but so infuriatingly addictive. It's another great one from Hewson, and it comes from the mind of one John M. Phillips, who's a coder so good, we'll see another of his games later on this episode. And he only did 2. He only did 2, and they're both here in this episode. Kind of strange, but there you go. There's not much plot to Nebulus, as in, great games don't generally need a great plot, but what there is this. On the planet Nebulus, someone has been up to no good. They've been building towers on the ocean bed without permission, no planning permission. There's a lot of things I can let go in my life, but building towers without planning permission on the ocean floor,
can't be done. Sorry,
it's not on. Where's
I'm informing the council.
Absolutely. If you had structural layouts approved, has someone come along and checked it? Oh no, someone's just been building them.
Gas safe?
Absolutely. What's going on? It's terrible. So because of this, the council have sent in you, the destruction engineer, and you've been given the job of travelling from tower to tower and just demolishing all 8 of them. There's 8, isn't there? I'm sure there's 8. Yeah, there's 8 of them.
Yes, 8.
So, blowing up, you just got to destroy all 8 of them. Like, you've built, thanks for building them, but we're just going to blow them up. And that's that. So that's your plot. So in order to do this, you simply just have to make your way up each tower. You start at the bottom, you climb the staircase that spirals around it, because these are round towers. They're not square towers, they're round. So they're like giant chimneys that Fred, what's his name? Dibner. Is it Fred Dibner? The Fred guy used to look like them. It's like them. Basically, this is Fred Dibner, the simulation. It's just occurred to me.
God.
Nebulous, Fred Dibner
God,
simulator.
they didn't release it as that.
That'd be dead funny, wouldn't it? Hey, I'm up this tower. It's got to blow it up.
Fred Dibner's Nebulous.
There you go. Oh, who knew? So the staircase spirals around it until you reach the top, and that's it, really. You've just got to reach the top, and at the top there's a doorway, and you go in the doorway, and the tower is reduced, and that's it. There's nothing clever. Just climb the tower, demolish it. So why is this game so brilliant? It's just because the way is not simple, and there are a combination of obstacles to trick you and trip you up, and this combination is devilish in its frustrating will make you make that noise so many times as you slip off an edge, you fall to your doom. So let's start with these. What is this? Because the pathway is just made up of white blocks, and you can climb up at least if they're white blocks, and they'll go round, and then you'll have steps. So you can climb up one step, one height, and you can move up them, and up you go. You play this little character. How do you describe it? It's like a little ball with legs and a big nose, bounces up and down. I don't know how else to describe him, really. He's a Nebulus.
Sort of amphibious, isn't he? I think.
It's kind of froggy-like or something, but it's kind of strange. You don't have any arms, so don't know how he eats. Kind of like a bird, I guess. Just
maybe he doesn't.
Maybe he doesn't. No, okay. So as you go up these blocks, some of them will crumble, and that's annoying. So on the very first level, don't go right. When you very first start, don't go
You'll learn
right.
the hard way.
Yeah, don't go right. In most games, and that's the thing with this game, is that in most games, the Mario platform games, it's go right, isn't it? Go right. Don't do that. Go left. You'll thank us. So if they fall out from underneath you, the crumb box, and you drop down the tower, there are enemies to avoid. There's 3 types of enemies, and they guard the tower. So the first type, these are unkillable enemies, and they move in like predictable patterns, and they must be avoided. So they'll be moving up and down, left to right, around the tower, and things like that. You can't kill them because you can shoot. And it's a weird shot. You kind of kick it at them from out your feet. It's like you kick a ball at them. It's like a weird thing. I don't know what exactly you're shooting at them, but you kick this ball at them. But if you kick it at these, it won't kill them. It'll just be destroyed. There are other enemies though, but you can kill, and they kind of home in on you when you get close, and you need to kill them. So you need to kick the ball at them, and that will kill them, and that's good. So you can kill them. Then there are the enemies that come on from the sides of the screen, and their entry is heralded by a sort of alarm noise of whoop. and they come at you on the level where you are. And these are random, so it's not always good. And they'll just start floating towards you, and you just got to get out of the way. You can't kill them. You just need to be above or below them when they go past you, and that's what you got to do. So they are quite a problem, because normally what they will force you to do is force you to rush. You'll speed up, and rushing in this game is bad. Don't rush. Fatal. You usually end up dead or being knocked down the tower, and that's the problem with this. Any collision with anything doesn't actually kill you. It just knocks you down the tower. So falling, crumbling blocks, hitting the enemies, it doesn't immediately kill you. It just knocks you down the tower. So why is that bad? I think that's right, isn't it? Everything just knocks you down the tower. It doesn't kill you.
Yeah. Don't kill you outright.
Yeah. So it didn't kill you outright. So that's a problem, because if you drop down, there's no platform between you and the ocean bed. That's how you lose a life. And always collisions seem to happen in places where there's nothing down below. It has this knack. This game has a perfect knack of putting something. You try and rush past something, and it'll hit you, and you'll be like, you'll knock down. You think, and even worse than that is landing on the lip of a ledge, because then you'll slip off it and you'll make that noise again, aye, and you fall to your doom. And you don't want that, because you'll lose a life, and you've only got 3 of them to complete the whole game. You can get extra lives though, but we'll come to that. And so that's it. So you got to climb these towers, avoid the enemies. There are lifts as well that will take you up and down. When you walk on them, if you're at the bottom, they'll take you automatically up. Then they'll wait a bit, then they'll go back down. So you need to, don't drop on them. That's bad. Usually you don't want to go there. There are also piles of bricks sometimes, piles of these sort of platforms which you need to sort of knock out the way. They'll collapse underneath you to avoid the way. Sometimes piles, and they'll fall down. There are also doors in the tower as well. Now, walking through a door will take you through to the other side of the tower. So the tower will rotate, and you'll be at the other side. And this is really useful, because with the tower rotating, it will speed up or slow down enemies that are floating towards you, and allow you to avoid them. So yeah, you will die a lot. You will get frustrated a lot, but you'll keep coming back. You'll keep coming back to this for more, because it's got that something, this game, that indefinable, addictive something that makes you just, you lose a life, but it's your fault. You genuinely die because it's your fault. Sometimes there's the odd thing where you go, I could have avoided that, but most times you rushed, you tried to get up quicker, you did something, and you didn't take your time, and you didn't use a bit of patience, and that's why, like the best games, you die because it's your fault generally. The screen, technically, this is a masterclass for the C64. It really is. From a visual point of thing, Mr. Phillips has just come along and just God knows where this has come from, because the main screen, so the main game, takes up most of the screen. There's the UI at the top, and the rest of the screen is filled with this underwater seascape, and it's beautiful. It's lovely, and it's got this rotating tower, so you will always stay central in the screen, so you're always dead center. But the tower, it rotates in this 3D effect, but it's in 2D. I don't know how he's done it. It's so clever. You may know some more of the technical aspects behind it, but I haven't got a bloody clue how he's done this. It's just so clever as you work towards it, and how all the enemies move and speed up depending on which way you're going round and all that. It gives this really clever sense of 3D in 2D. It's just really clever. It reminded me way down the line of a game called Fez. Did you ever play Fez? Do you remember Fez? Did you play Fez?
Yeah, I played Fez. Fez is really good. There is a hint of that, isn't there?
Yeah, the way that Fez is 2D, but it's in that 3D. You can move the world around into through sides, and how it sort of works. So it reminds me, this kind of has a similar kind of effect. You don't rotate the world as much as you do in Fez, but the tower, the way it rotates, and it's very, very clever. It's really, really clever. The sprite work is also excellent. Your little character is amazing. It's lovely. It's just a really cute little creature. The animation on him is top notch. Little legs go in the way his eyes bounce up and down, and his nose bounces up and down as you walk. It's full of character, and it's just an ace little thing to control. The use of color in this is also excellent. It doesn't look like a C64 game at all, I don't think, or it looks like one where somebody's actually taken thought about, well, there's more colours than brown and grey. It's really vibrant, and it's a world away from the Yorkshire pudding simulators we see so often. So it has a really good sense of colour to this game. It's really bright. It just feels, it pops off the screen. As I said, the top of the screen is left for the UI, and there's not much on there. There's your score, there's your number of lives. The main prominence in the UI is the timer. It's the time left to complete the level, because that's the thing with this game. Every level has a timer, and should this run down to 0, you'll lose another life. And that's the thing about this game. You've only got a certain amount of time to get to the top of the tower. that's the thing that causes you to rush. That's always the thing that causes you to die. But take your time, plan your moves. There's plenty of time to get to the top of the tower. Look for the traps, look for the trips. You will get there, but you won't, because you'll die, because you'll rush, because you'll be running out of time and things like that. It's just, it's one of those games. If you do manage to get to the top of the tower, then there's a really nice sort of, the tower sort of shrinks downwards to the top. When you arrive at the tower, you arrive in your little submarine. You sort of swim up, this little come up and thing, and you pop out. Little submarine comes up, and the top of the submarine opens, and you pop out. When you destroy the tower, you go back down to it. Top of the submarine pops back open again, and you pop in, and there's a little mini game in between towers, because you don't just go to the next tower. You don't just appear at the next tower. You actually drive your submarine underwater with a really ace parallax effect. Just great. Everything about this game visually is amazing. I love it. And you basically drive your submarine from one tower to the next, and you've got to shoot. There's fish come spiraling at you, and you have to shoot them with your bubble gun. And so if you hit them, they sort of stop, and they're in a bubble of air. And then if you go into them, you drive into them, you get extra points. And this is really useful, because that's how you want to pick up your extra lives. That's this score bonus attack thing is where you get your extra lives, and you really need them between to attack the next tower, because when you start getting to unknown towers and the tricks and trap, the towers get taller, the timer gets longer, there's more stuff going on, the enemies get more frequent. It gets harder. You need those extra lives. I think everything about this is just about perfect. The one thing I would say about this, though, is the one thing I would have taken from QDex as we played it. I'd like to have seen it allowed you to practice towers, rather than having to go through it 1 to 8 in order every time, because it's really hard. I find it's really hard and frustrating. But perfectly good with it. It's a balance, but being able to sort of attack the towers and sort of try and understand them before having that go at, I'm going to do them all now in one big go. Because remembering all 8 is takes some doing. Because it's a game that will frustrate you at every turn almost, but you'll learn from each misstep, each rush for a safe ledge, each towel that falls out from underneath you, and you'll make it further next time. Every time you'll try, but then having memory of all 8 towers in your head, that's some doing. I never completed this, but I still love it, even though it is hard and it is frustrating. But there's something about this game that is just it's great. It's amazing. For me, this is a worthy gold medal. I can't fault them. 97% it got, and absolutely deserves every single one of those. It's further proof. I mean, it's technically amazing, but it's that simple idea: climb a tower, done well, and it shows you all you need for a great game. And the stunning visuals and the presentation, they don't hurt either. But it's that core simple idea done perfectly is why this is another one of the C64's crown gems, as far as I'm concerned. What about you?
It's easily one of the best, isn't it? And possibly most infuriating games ever made, this. I always like Nebulus. I think it's an amazing game. It's great that it's also on the C64 Max and Mini as well, so
yes,
so play it there. It's something special, Nebulus, from the opening and the music and everything else and the interstitials, because everything has got something about it, the magic about it in this game. Right through to the amazing game, the towers, that infuriating gameplay and dynamics. It's infuriating, but like you said, it's hard, but it also makes you think, right, I'm going to have a go, and this time I'm going to go left instead of right, and things like that.
Yes.
It's very easy to get into and work through. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of skill to pick up how to do it, which is one of the key things about this game. And it contains just the right mechanics to keep you interested. So there's not too much, you're not getting bombarded with loads of bees, wasps type things flapping around, which would have made this game impossible or more impossible.
Yeah.
So you're not getting bothered by continuous enemies, and not in that way that some of the other games are. Obviously, there's the noise. When you hear the noise, you know that when you play this game, you'll know the noise. The noise. As soon as you hear that, you're like, oh no. And like you said, it's really just designed to sort of panic you into making a decision about whether you're going to go through that door now, when you're going to go through the door and wait till it gets near you, when you're going to go up, when you're going to go down, or whatever. I mean, really, this is, I suppose, kind of a real clever version of Snakes and Ladders in some ways, but there's clever little touches throughout the whole thing. Instead of always getting killed by the enemies, like you said, you get knocked off your perch, which just costs you time and often a place. And you think, oh, I've got to go all the way back up. Then you've got to remember your route that you took as well, which is, so it's a voyage of discovery sometimes. And you've got timing, obviously, and you've got jumping, and because you can jump as well, and you've got things to solve.
Oh yeah, you can jump, yeah.
Because sometimes you'll go up and you think, I can't get to that bit yet. So you have to sort of walk around, shoot the things, then go back around the tower the other way and to go through a door. And it's all, certain parts of it involved in sort of thinking about that. But you've got to figure all this stuff out and remember it, because if you get knocked down, you've got to go back through the whole thing again. So the pace is about right. You're not skidding out of control, are you? The pace of the character is really clever because it's exactly correct.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're neither running too fast and got some crappy inertia effect, which means you're flying off the tower, nor is it so fast that you can't sort of get to grips with it. It's just the right. And you said the same about Solomon's Key. Everything's just about one block away in the way you jump, the way you walk. It's got that kind of pace, and that works. That really works. So my feeling was, and it was the same now as it was back then. The game designer sat down and really thought about how to make this game. They didn't just sort of go, I'm going to make a tower game today, and it's probably going to have this. They really sat and planned this out, because each one of those towers is perfectly designed, and they do get more difficult as they go as well. Mm-hmm. The tower rotation effect is absolutely incredibly clever. I mean, it really is clever, and it works so well, and it's such a clever use of combination of sprites, multiplexing, and character animations in there. It's just mind-boggling. And there's actually a really good video by a really good YouTuber that I like called Shaylan, who does an entire C64 series on how to make games and 6502 assembler, and amazing 3-hour-long deep dives into all sorts of C64 code tips and tricks and all those kind of things. He's actually done a series called Let's Dissect a Commodore 64 Game, and one of those C64 games he dissects, and bear in mind, he literally takes a game apart, code line by code line, explores how they did it. One of those games is Nebulus, and I'd recommend everybody, I'll put the link in the show notes, go and watch that video. It's about 3 hours long, which shows you how complex this is, but he really does take you right through the code. It's incredible to watch, and amazing to see how they did it. And you won't believe how they did it in the true Halloween 3 sense. It's not powered with gravy. So this blows my mind, even to this day. It blows my mind at how slick and how smoothly this game really runs. I was straight back in the zone. I mean, I assume you were as well. I mean, I just went straight back to it. As soon as I heard that sound, I was like, oh, that chirping sound. As soon as you hear it, you know that the enemy that's going to come at you floating exactly at your level, and they have a knack of appearing at the exact wrong moments as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if you hesitate, they appear, or if they just appear at random. I don't know, but either way, it's bloody annoying. And I think they actually give, perhaps that particular enemy gives the liquor ships a run for their money in the annoying enemy awards, because they don't stick to you and drive you mad, but they just have a knack of knocking you off your perch just at the exact wrong moment. I got to the top of Tower 3, and all you've got to do when you get to the top is literally go through a door, rotate and run to the right, and go through the door. Yeah. Just as I got there, it was, and I was just as I was trying to make it to the door, it kind of knocked me off my perch. I'm like, damn you.
You rushed. That's just, it created that panic. So it's got really great, as you said, graphics here are genuinely amazing, very next gen looking, considering this is an 8-bit platform. And this did come out on other platforms, and the graphics ante wasn't up that much. It's the Commodore 64 really showing its power here to do what games can do really well. Really well drawn sprites. The sprites in the mini game are really good. The big submarine and like you said, the parallax effects is really clever. You got to shoot little fish, haven't you, and collect the bubbles and stuff and get for bonus points and that. Yeah. The really good sound effects in this. I love the sort of Eastern feel to the tones, so, it's really good, and it's the way they've done the sounds and everything else. Really good mixed up puzzles, gameplay, mechanics, and difficulty. And the best thing of all is that even though this game will annoy the living crap out of you, you're going to keep coming back. You'll be back. I think this is one of the top 10 games on the platform on the C64 by a mile. This is easily in the top 10. It could be even higher than that. But if you had to assemble a top 10 of games to say to somebody, here's 10 games, go and play these, Nebulus has got to be in there. It's got to be. And it's a worthy finally, a game worthy of its gold medal. Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I mean, it's going to be one of the
brilliant.
This is certainly going to be in the discussion for best game, I feel, next week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing game, Nebulus, and it even now stands the test of time at how good it actually is.
Simple idea, done well.
Yeah, and we're going to see a bit of that in this episode, I think. But what a game to start on! Boom.
Yeah, Nebulus. Awesome stuff. I love Nebulus. It's so good. Like you said, straight in, start playing, and you just know, climb the tower. It's that simple thing. Climb the tower. Up. Go up. Don't go right. Don't
fall down. Yeah, and when you do fall through a thing, you're like, oh, it feels like such a low ball when you go across a thing, and you think one of them's going to be disappear, and I'm going to fall into the water, and it does, and you're like, oh, I'll just have to remember next time to not do that.
Yeah. I know, it's bloody annoying.
But yeah, great stuff.
Brilliant with it. There we go, Nebulus. We loved it. We still love it.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Let's move along. Hopefully we'll love our next one just as much. And Graham, you've got that next one. Enter the world of Prime Minister.
15 quid for this. 15 quid.
Let's just lay it on the table. In today's money, that's £3,000, isn't it?
It got 38% in Zapped. Perhaps let's just look at the game. So this is from Mosaic Publishing, as far as I could ascertain. I think there might have been a different publisher, but that's the one I found that was listed for this. And it was programmed by John Wood, Richard Yap, and Richard Horrocks. I felt like getting kicked in the Horrocks, but Richard Horrocks then did it. According to the inlay for this, a week is a long time in politics. Try surviving just 5 days as Prime Minister. You are Jim Hackett hacker, the nation's number one. So you're the nation's number one, the Prime Minister. And this is but obviously based on the Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister TV series, which came about before this. So this is the game of the TV show. And when that TV show, for the people who don't have a clue what I'm talking about, was a political satire show in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, I think, around that time, something like that. So in this game, you decide the strategy, you make the decisions, crises will occur, and it will be up to you to resolve them using all the flair, charm, and intellect which the British public has come to associate with you. As ever, you will receive the support, sympathy, and respect of two loyal civil servants, Bernard Woolley, your private secretary, and Sir Humphrey Appleby, the cabinet secretary. Bernard will often try and provide a diplomatic edge to your more precipitate decisions. Humour him, as he is really trying to help. As for loyal Humphrey, you will have to judge where his loyalties lie. Take note of his advice, but remember that civil servants are occasionally economical with the truth. Your performance as an international statesman and national leader will be closely monitored. Only you can ensure that the week does not end in parliamentary chaos and scandal. Don't forget that diplomacy is about surviving until the next century. Politics is about surviving until the end of the week. So in this game, then, you obviously play as the British Prime Minister, Jim Hacker, as we said. You start out with a 50% approval rating, and you've got to work over a 5-day period to improve that and improve your status in the polls. The player, obviously, is aided by, as we said, with the civil servants that work with you. And the game is basically essentially played through conversations between you and the other characters, such as Humphrey and Bernard, and also selecting different responses from dialogue options, as well as looking at different outcomes and getting messages. And very similar to the way that the Fourth Protocol worked, in that kind of idea. So you sort of play this from a desk view, and then you've got a kind of an icon finger thing and finger pointer thing, and you can sort of check different things.
The finger.
Come to that. Give this game the finger. So obviously most of your gameplay takes place in your office. So that has such tasty items as an intercom. You can tell when this was made. An intercom, a telex machine, some telephones, obviously 2 telephones. So when it rings, obviously you've got to answer that, and you've got to keep track of the time, because you'll get information which is about appointments where you have to be in a certain place. It's very similar the way it plays the Fourth Protocol in that way, and a couple of other games. It reminded me of that god-awful detective game as well that we saw, where you couldn't actually solve the crime.
Oh, the Sydney
There's no way to solve it. Yeah, so, it reminded me a little bit of that, and the kind of the look of it, because it's got a kind of a monotone.
It reminded me
look.
of the good detective game we played.
Yeah, in some ways, I suppose it just reminded me. That's the viewpoint, I suppose, not so much the gameplay, but the view.
Yeah. So
you've got other duties, of course. You've got to read memos that come into the office. You get poll numbers, and you've got a safe you can access, which is hidden behind the Union Jack. So you got to get through those 5 days. You actually play each of the 5 days out with a kind of icon text adventure style approach. Each day things happen. So appointments, decisions on policy, specific items to decide. You choose and do certain tasks, and those outcomes will either adversely or positively affect your ratings, and so the game goes on. And your assistants will actually try and guide you with either, I felt Bernard Woolley specifically had a distinct sardonic tone all the way through to help you make the right or wrong choices. And you'll often get asked dilemma questions. I can't think of a really good example, Tom, because there's quite a lot in here, but you'll get things like, there's a new feminist movement. Do you want to A, send them a box of chocolates, or B, that kind of thing? And you sort of choose from the outcome of those things, and they kind of play out over the sort of days of the game. And then obviously that affects or doesn't affect your outcome. So essentially that's how the game plays out. You're looking at the game from a kind of like I said, from a desk-based view, and you're kind of sort of navigating the space. It's not very well drawn, I have to say. It's quite, even from the opening title screen was this crappy line drawing. It's not very good. And it shouts, I'm not sure what this was built on, and whether this has come from, because it's also, I noticed, out on the BBC Micro, so I don't know whether this was a BBC game turned C64 game, or whichever route it took. But it didn't look very good, which is telling me that it probably started out life on something with less memory and less graphic capabilities than a C64. So you'll work your way through all of these different events. Some of the events kind of supposedly happen randomly, I suppose, and certain in the day. So you might get, might have to do an interview with the BBC, or you might have to make a speech, or you might have to choose certain options on a speech. And you get sort of occasionally a graph appears, a hackergram, and you got to sort of position your cursor over the most suitable point in order to indicate your answer, and that kind of thing. So it's just making decisions, really, a lot of this game, making decisions about outcomes and whether that's going to affect you or not. So I don't like Yes Prime Minister or Yes Minister. I've never watched it, and it's not my cup of tea. A political satire didn't really reach me until the thick of it, which is another TV show. So I don't really get on with this particular game at all. I didn't have an affinity or knowledge of any of the characters, none. I mean, I'd heard of the TV show and I'd seen clips of it on TV, and it was just one great big joke that never got to me, never appealed to me. But I wasn't particularly political as a teenager, so this had literally no interest in me. This is almost the equivalent of that boring election game. I have no interest in politics really anyway, certainly not at that age. Nor would I want to play 5 days as the Prime Minister. And even in this idea of satire, I think satire only works visually when you've got characters that are looking satirical and adopt a tone of voice and have a certain way of looking and that comedy is Prime Minister is often based on kind of a look or timing and all of those comedic elements which simply do not work in a game, and certainly not in this game. So because I never watched the TV show, none of the characters had any kind of currency with me anyway. But okay, let's look at it as a fresh experience. The actual game itself did play like a kind of a dull version of the Fourth Protocol for me, in that you're just going around clicking on things and trying to sort of wait for things to happen. I mean, I suppose it plays okay if you like that kind of thing. There's lots of notes and memos, and there's lots of moving your pointer slowly around and things like that, which is quite frustrating because it's so boringly slow. It's not exciting. And nor maybe this game should. But there's two things for me that this game should have been. It should have been funny, and it's not. And it should have been more interesting to play, and it's not. What you are is just clicking on things and reading stuff. And if you don't find any of that funny, and you won't do, because if it says something like Bernard is looking at you in a stern way, it's not going to have your side splitting with laughter, is it? It just doesn't work. It doesn't work because you need to visually see the people in the show. The whole point of this is a lot of it's based around their interactions and reactions to each other, and the sort of stark contrast between the sort of sly smartness of one character and the dumbness of the other characters. And because you don't get any of that, this isn't going to work. So without that frame of reference and without that comedic interjection and without all of those things, this is just a pointless click on things and stuff might or might not happen game based around a political satire of a time which nobody cares about anymore, on a show that isn't even on anymore, and one that I never watched anyway. So I think for me, this is a great big switch off. But this is probably, if you were a fan of Yes, Prime Minister and happened to want to live that life, and if you could visually see the characters and in that way, when you read the dialogue of this, you could sort of capture that in your mind and see how it could play out. If you're that kind of person and you really like this show, maybe this is something for fans like that. Maybe people who know it really well and go, oh, yeah, this is hilarious. Watching when Bernard dropped that souffle on the carpet and, it's the Prime Minister's favourite rug. I don't get those kind of jokes. It's lost on me, but maybe, that maybe people's sides were splitting in the late 80s with that. Interestingly, one of the writers for this was actually one of the show writers, Anthony J. He provided input into the game, so it was actually partly written by a person that wrote the TV show, so must be something in that, I suppose, but this is a no Prime Minister for me. What about you?
That's what my last sentence on this, I'm afraid this is definitely a no Prime Minister for me.
Absolutely.
I am one of those people. I loved Yes Prime Minister and Yes Minister before it. That was 3 seasons on BBC Two, and then it turned into Yes Prime Minister, which ran for a further 2 seasons. I would watch this every week back in the 1980s. I loved it. I thought it was really funny. I still find it really funny because the situations and the way that they go around stuff is so pertinent to modern politics. It's almost like it could be written for today. Just substitute the clothes, and it would still work. In that bit more. It's not like you said. It's not like the thick of it where every other word is an expletive. This is more of a erudite,
my cup of tea,
satirical. Yeah. Probably. However, it's all lost in this. I mean, the first thing that the problem with this is that the main play screen, it's so brown. And I do mean so brown and yellow, but mainly so brown. I know that decor was a lot of wood decor in the 80s.
Wood panelled.
But they don't have to go this brown. And you're moving that bloody hand around the screen. It's so slow. We saw this it's the same interface, or it should have been the same interface as Killed Until Dead, because Killed Until Dead is essentially based around behind a desk. The game is played out from behind that desk, and you see stuff and you do stuff and you ring people up, you talk to them, you watch stuff and whatever. It's the same thing. This is the same thing, but they've decided to give you a free roaming hand. Now, it's not the worst free roaming cursor we'll see in this episode, but it's a close second. And it's slow and boring and dull, and why does it need to scroll? Just fit it all on one screen and flick from bit to bit. It's all you need. It's written okay. I mean, way down the line, these kind of visual novel type things will become, very popular. At this point, not so much. So we saw this. I would liken this to more like the Adrian Mole game that we played through as well, because it's that kind of like you get some text from a funny thing that was funny in another media, and you have to select an option. So that's where I would go this. But this is just really dull, like you said. When I was playing it, I could kind of hear the voices in my head, but it's in the delivery, it's in the timing, it's comedy. It's what we said about, How to Be a Complete Bastard, whatever it was last week, that comedy's in the timing. And when it's just written, it's hard to get that through properly. And so, no, this was a big turn-off. I'd like this. The title screen, by the way, is based on the way that the credits for the show, they were drawn out with pencil each week. So I
remember them now, yeah. Still crap on this, though.
Yeah, it's not great, but that's what they sort of, this is alluding to. That's what it was. So they've gone for a look of the thingy, and I'm not a big fan of these digitized images that they sort of are using in some C64 games of the people from the show. They kind of look, but you have to really squint. It's like, that Bernard? Is that Bernard? But, as you rightly know, it's 15 quid as well.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? That?
For the tape version. It's not the disc version, it's the tape version. And it's really expensive. Slow as well to go from day to day.
It just plod.
It's really boring and slow. So, no, this was another, and it's a license. It's just a pointless license drawn out in brown and yellow. So, it's just,
the two worst colours to draw anything in.
I know, and it's all this thing uses, brown and bloody yellow, and some grey every now and again. No, I didn't like this. And like I said, I do like Yes Prime Minister, but so for full reference, for those people you might have think this was for people who like Yes Prime Minister and may want to give this a go, no, we don't like it. We don't. I'm speaking for my kind. We don't. This is rubbish. Absolutely. Yeah, you said it right. No, Prime Minister. No, just go away. There we go. That's that one. Got a fall from grace after Nebulus. Oh well, there we go. You can't win them all. You certainly didn't win that one.
No.
Let's move on. To our next one. And our next one is it's a full price, another full price game. It scored 57%. This is Implosion, not explosion. Implosion. This music sounds suspiciously like Mission AD to you.
It was similar. Is it Fred Gray?
It is.
Yeah, this sounds similar.
Yeah, when it came on, I was like, this sounds like Mission AD. Anyway, Implosion, right. So this is it's a fast and technically pretty impressive 360-degree blaster that unfortunately is really confusing to play.
It is a bit.
It's really confusing. It was coded by Joe Booth, and he will go on to do the conversion of Star Wars. So we've got that coming soon. And it has graphics by John Cassels, and as I've noted, music by Fred Gray. An artificial planet is on collision course with Earth. What's an artificial planet? Who makes them? Who makes artificial planets? It's either a planet or it's not.
It's the Magrathians. They do it.
They do, I know. But if something's big enough to be a planet, it's big enough to be a planet.
Oh, you're raising difficult to answer questions again.
Have I gone all philosophical on us? When is a planet not a planet?
Exactly. When it's fake.
Well, when it's a fake planet with a white dwarf at the heart of it.
I'm just going to switch off right now.
Don't ask me. Why would what? Anyway, obviously this is bad news for Earth because an artificial planet with a white dwarf is heading towards it. So you've been sent to destroy this with a fleet of 3 spaceships, and so to blow this up and stop it happening and save Earth once again. It's a plot. It's a sci-fi nonsense plot to wrap around whatever this game design is. So as I said, it's a 360-degree shooter. Although I think you can only move in the 8 directions, so it's kind of an 8-way shooter. So it has you playing on 2 levels. So it's top 360 degrees. Think Z and stuff like that, parallax, all those kind of things. Except you've got bigger sprite, and you can flip between these 2 levels. There's these 2 grids that sort of exist, and you can flip between them by pressing the space bar, and you can go above or below them. So pressing it once, I think you start on top, pressing it once will take you below them, and you fly underneath it. Pressing it again brings you back up to the top. You've got to be in some space to do that because there's the little flippy animation, sort of flips upwards, and the sprite shrinks or grows depending on whether you're coming closer or going further away. And the point of all this is these grids, there are energy spheres on these grids, and you have to destroy them all. If you destroy all these energy spheres and you progress through these 7 levels, you go and you head on to the final. I never got this far, so I'm just going from reviews. You get onto the trench system to destroy the white dwarf. And this made me think trench system. Maybe is that why you got the Star Wars gig? I never saw it, but maybe
it could easily be, couldn't it?
Yeah, because there's the trench flying along that. So anyway, on each level, so you start at level 1, you got to destroy. There's these energy spheres, as I said. They're all linked on these grids, and if you destroy them all, this causes the grid to collapse. Opens a portal through which you can fly to the next level. So what this means is there's a lot of flying in all directions, and you've got to shoot these things. They're on these grids, and to be fair, that's really about as far as I got. I ended up yelling. My partner came in, asked me what I was yelling at while I was playing this because I didn't understand what was happening. I couldn't, I still don't fully understand. And I've looked around, and a lot of people are saying the same thing because this is about as far as I got. I just kept dying, and that's it. So let's look at the positives. I mean, there's not much more to this. You fly around, you try and survive, you don't. That's it. I like the main sprite and the scaling that happens as you flip between layers. The scrolling's nice and fast and smooth, and the main graphics, the grids everything looks nice. It looks the part. But I had a look at the instructions, which were of no help. They just said avoid the grid, but there are 2 grids. Like, what? Which one?
Don't.
And I just, and flying around, I just kept losing health. My health bars were just seemingly going down for no reason. And then I was dead. I blew up. And then it was game over. And I was never quite sure what the hell I was supposed to be accomplishing when playing it. I was shooting stuff was blowing up, but I was just losing energy. And it was, because there's no gaps in the grids. Well, there are, but there are not enough of them. So you can't avoid the grid. And you're on 2 levels. So which level am I avoiding the grid on? I just kept losing. I just watched my energy bar at the bottom just going down for reasons I couldn't work out. And even when I was not being attacked, because there's random enemies that just sort of come on in these weird, sort of wibbly wobbly waves, these sort of spirally waves that come on. You can shoot them, but I was just still losing enemies and then dying. And I don't. No one needs that. I need to understand what's going on. For me, this would have been much clearer because when you shoot these energy spheres, they kind of blow up, and these I don't know what you call them, like power. You can fly into these little sort of shrapnel bits that fly off them, and if you fly into them on the lower level, they exist on the lower level. You get some of your energy back. Some of them I was flying into, but nothing was happening. I don't know. The instructions explained none of this, and so I really couldn't figure out what the hell I was supposed to be doing. For me, if you have things to shoot on the lower and upper levels and energy spawning on both, and then it would have been easier to understand. Have the danger come from the enemies that try and swarm you, and you've had a typical shooter trying to be clever with this weird stuff and having your person's energy going down for a reason that is not immediately understandable, or even not immediately, but understandable 10, 15 minutes after playing it, and about the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th go, where I'm like, I tried different things, read the instructions, looked at this, watched a playthrough on YouTube, and I still don't understand. Because the UI at the bottom, and the UI at the bottom's confusing. It shows your score, and there are 2 energy banks, which I didn't understand. I don't know if you did, but I'm not sure which was which, and it just made it more confusing. So I found this very frustrating to play. However, there's a message from the guy who made this on Joe Booth on Lemon 64 in the write-up for this, and he says he was only 16 when he made this, so that's pretty impressive actually. So fair play to him. If he's only 16 and he's made this, all right, it's his first game, but technically this is really impressive. Technically, it's just doesn't play very well. It's just illogical ideas that are hard to manage. I did want to like this because it does look nice and it sounds good, but when I keep dying and I can't figure out why, no, it just made me want to turn it off because I didn't. Maybe you understood it better than I got my head around it, but I could not figure this out for the life of me. And I tried, but it made no sense to me. What about you? Did you get on with this?
I thought it looked good. I mean, the graphics look really nice. The title screen was nice. Graphics looked good in the game. No, that all was all good. There was no denying the technical aspects here. The crazy speed, multi-directional scrolling, good enemy sprites, decent backgrounds with, like you say, with depth. It all looked the part. Decent sounds and music as well. And it controlled pretty well. You know, all of those things, all good, all thumbs up, 5 stars, tick, 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 well done, yay. Unfortunately, it was incomprehensible. And perhaps, and I've actually made a point. I found it easy and dull, and I'm not sure. I think that's because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I didn't really seem to be doing much. It felt like it was another example where they're giving the player more than challenge. It was just kind of endless harassment, and I think that's because I didn't know what I was really meant to be doing to avoid that. So it all looked the part, but there wasn't really any game that I could get into to sort of figure out. I kept finding myself flying under the network structure. Just somehow I was on the next level down, and then I just blew up. I'm like, how did I even get down there? And I'm not sure what I did to do it. I don't know if it was part of it or not. I'm not sure if I was meant to go down there and do something. But whenever I popped back up to the top, I had a blow up on the route. But I was pretty sure that the top level was where most of the action was happening. I don't know what was happening down there. I'm not sure what purpose it served. And it's it was always unintentional. I just kind of suddenly found myself below the sort of top layer thing, and I'm like, why am I in there again? I thought, well, I'm dead anyway, no matter what now. So it looked good, sounded all right, really good coding. Amazing that it's a 16-year-old. I mean, that is really clever stuff going on in there. But the game itself, well, what was it? I don't know what to make of it. I didn't know that there was anything in there that really felt like coherent game design. It just felt like lots of technical things thrown in. And somebody said, have you thought about a game with this? And it's like, well, no, not really. Just collect stuff and shoot. I don't know, shoot things.
When I think about it, and you go up and down and underneath and above the grid, it's parallax, isn't it? It's the theme parallax, and because that you go up and down, don't you? But that has a point,
feel.
and that's the difference, isn't it? I guess.
Well, I think what it is for me was it clearly is it meant to be a shoot 'em up. I think if it had just stuck to being a shoot 'em up, it might have worked. There's a lot of games like this. I have to say we've played quite a few like it. So, but it was a more serviceable version of that. But at full price for something like this, there's other 360 games. These have been around a while. I mean, we've been playing these kind of 360 scrolling games since way back when with the Chris Butler one that we played.
Yeah, Hyper Circuit and things
exactly.
Like that.
Exactly. So there's nothing really new about this, but this did up the ante on some of its technical prowess. But the game was just, I'm not sure. It's a bit scrambled for me, a bit of scrambled egg. So and I like my eggs poached, boiled maybe, but I don't really go for scrambled egg.
No, I don't like cutting into my egg and finding a white dwarf at the center of it. That always turns me off.
And just don't play with the laws of physics in that way. A white dwarf is a star. It is not going to sit in the middle of a planet because it would explode and vaporize in seconds.
Even an artificial planet.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? It's just silly. Just silly words thrown in to sound big and interesting. And there's a white dwarf at the center of that planet. I'm like, really? You are a gibberish talking buffoon. So no, I don't go for that kind of thing. That just shouts that that nobody thought about that. That's bolted on afterwards. Oh, we need a story. I don't know. Put a star in a planet or something. I don't know, because that sort of is as much of the idea of the game as you get. Yeah. No, I really like that title screen on Implosion. I swear I've seen it in something else. I wonder if I've seen it in a demo as well. But it's really good. That all of the graphics I really liked in this game. It's just a pity that the game itself was. I don't know really what to make of that. I didn't quite. I think I got somewhere, but I couldn't tell you what it was I was doing, how I got there, or why. I feel sure I should be able to do those things if I'm playing a game.
I think it belies the age of the guy who made it. Really, it's just
maybe
for my first game. But fair play to the guy. He can clearly.
Yeah.
If he gets the Star Wars, the Star Wars game comes out quite soon, so he's only 16, 17 doing the Star Wars license. That must be like job of a lifetime.
I thought Star Wars was done by someone else, but never mind.
Well, according to Lemon64, he's down for it.
Crazy.
Joe Booth.
Clever stuff.
The Domark. He's one of the coders on it, along with a couple of others, but yeah, we'll come to that though when we get to it. There we go, Implosion. It looks great, looks the part, but God knows what's going on. Move on, we've got a couple left. We 3 left, actually. I don't know what we've got left. Anyway, yeah. So let's move on to our next one. And Graham, Discovery.
Voyage of Discovery, isn't it?
Voyage of Discovery, yes.
So this is a 995 game from CRL. I don't know the names of the people that coded this, because they didn't think to put their names in it anyway. It just says CRL, so we'll just have to assume that it's CRL.
Colin, Roger, and Lee.
Yeah, probably them. And it's 77% in Zap. So in space, somewhere, a spaceship has been drifting for 2,000 years. 2,000 long years. The ship is all in one piece. Good stuff. But missing a vital circuit board whose components have been, for reasons, scattered across the ship's surface. We played a game that said this kind of story before. I forget what it was called, but we played another one that sounds very similar to that story, where the surface of the ship needed you to explore it anyway. Yeah. Your mission then is to fly in your mini spacecraft over the ship and find all these all-important missing components. To do this, you need to discover the 12 entry ports, which are handily numbered 1 to 12, and then you can enter them. This will allow you to participate in some mini games that will, should you complete them, gift you parts for the circuit board. The games vary, but seem to be variants of Centipede, Solitaire, Breakout, and a few others which are more odd. All of them are against the clock anyway, so you have a limited time to finish them, and if you fail, you get nothing, and back to the surface of the ship you go, with your tail between your legs. You can then only enter another port, as the one you have just left is blocked temporarily, so if you fail at 12, then you can't go back and try it again. You've got to go and do 11, then come back to 12. As you fly around looking for ports, you will get attacked by the ship's defences, who buzz around you like angry wasps. And shoot at you to drain your shields. It's one of those games where they're just going to bug the crap out of you by flying around and annoying you.
Yeah.
Should come with a fly swatter. If your shields happens to be drained completely, you're a goner. However, each completed mini-port game will replenish your shield. Ace. So, that's the game. Flying around, go to the ports, avoid the wasps, and try and complete the mini-games in order to get the parts for the circuit board. Yay. Graphics here are okay. On the outside of the spaceship, I thought that was quite decent, actually, and the main game sprites on that part seemed reasonably well crafted. All looked spaceshipy. I know, there's greys and tonal spaceships, all good. Sound of the music was okay. It's not going to blow your mind, but it was all right. It was okay. And the scrolling was good. No real bugs that I encountered in that bit. The mini-games, well, that's a bit more hit and miss. I felt like the controls were lagging in some of them. And when I say lagging, really annoying and lagging, which hindered my ability to play them the way I wanted. So the joystick controls seem nippy and responsive when you control your ship outside of the minigames. Inside, it suddenly gets ploddy and quite stilted and quite jolty, and which may be part and parcel of the sort of dynamics of those minigames in some instances. But I found that most often than not, it just annoyed me. The main window of the game is the sort of 2/3 of the screen. The bottom part is your UI, which shows your progress, your time and shield status, and your score. The style of the game is that kind of base release style, which we've seen a million times, but a tad more subtle and with a few colours. But it still seems reliant on the greys. But I suppose it's what you describe as generally okay. It's all medium res, of course, but that doesn't actually hinder the outside play. Just the mini games all seem less graphically adept, and a lot of them more basic, and they're not that much fun, some of these versions. This is a bit like a crappy Minter game. So Minter did a multi-game, which was way better than this. I didn't really like that, but it was way better than this because it was kind of in your face, crazy, and the games are mental. This is a kind of an idea around that, but none of the games are really that good. The Breakout game was really lame, really slow and lame. It's just really naff. It's like a multi-ball Breakout, but it's just really slow, and then it sort of speeds up at the wrong moment, and you just think, I don't want to finish this crappy thing. And then there was another one which was a bit like where he had to run around a sort of maze and follow the lines on a maze. It's just crap. I was like, oh, this is dull. This is like going to an arcade thinking that you're going to play Outrun and all the fancy new games back in the day. When you get there, you've got Pac-Man and you've got, a couple of broken Space Invaders. You're like, oh, is there anything new? Have you got anything decent? They're like, no, mate, no. Go on, slot, penny slots. So you just like, so the minigames are kind of old style. And if you're going to do these old style minigames, do them really well, but they don't here. They're kind of in a mini screen as well. I just didn't enjoy them. So it was promising from the outside, but the minigames didn't hold any interest for me. I've seen better shooters, the compilation shooters of this type, including the Minter one. And so this wasn't my cup of tea. I'd rather go and play, and this is saying a lot for me, I'd rather go and play the Jeff Minter multi-game that we played. This is distinctly meh. I don't think it deserved 77% for me. Maybe for its graphics and sound, it got a half decent sort of 3/4 base review, but I just found the minigames tedious and quite frustrating and dull. Especially there was one in particular where I was like a multicolored block thing, and I had to sort of shift the puzzle pieces to make the pattern. And it's just, you find yourself moving the joystick, and it's like click, 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 press the button, click, click, move the thing, and like, oh, this is so. And you against a clock, remember? So you need it to move, you need it to respond quicker to the joystick control when it's against the clock. Think about Nebulus. If every time you was playing Nebulus and you move the joystick, and it was like, oh, all right, I'll move in a minute, and I'm not going to, it's none of that. So I thought, it wasn't no Discovery I wanted to be on, so no thanks. Full price as well. Again, it's a lot of money for a game with lots of old games in it. Arcade Classics had 4 games, and that was only £2. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'm absolutely completely 180% the opposite to you. Weird. I actually didn't like the flying around shooting bit, but I actually liked all the mini games. Weirdly enough. Because I thought the variety of them was quite good. I got into quite a few of them and was digging it about. It was traveling from one to the other that just annoyed me. I don't mind the 360, the shooting bit. It was all right, but I just found that when you get about 2 or 3 mini games under your belt, the stuff outside becomes so fast you can barely deal with it. And trying to looking for different ports is where I sort of started to fall down. But the mini games, I quite enjoyed them. There's some nice puzzly type ones, like one where you've got to get from one side to the other, and each color is worth a different value of points, and it gives you a target to hit, and you've got to sort of get across the other side by hitting that target, by moving from point and things like that.
I'm bored listening to what you're saying about that game already. I'm just you talking about it.
Well, I liked it. I mean, I didn't mind it. To me, I like what I said about with Rebel and Action Force. There's a decent central conceit here about, even if you could change it. Okay, so if you don't like it, fair enough, I get it. But it's neither one thing nor the other again. It's what we said about Rebel. It's what we said about Action Force, where there is this idea, you either be a space shooter or be a puzzle game. And for me, and for you, obviously one bit works better than the other. And we've both got downsides on the other thing. And I think that's the problem with this game, is if it had gone all out on the puzzling, so you have to sort of work out and then they could have done more with the puzzles and make them a bit more visually appealing. Because I agree that it's not particularly visually appealing, those puzzles, and it takes a little while to sort of understand what you got to do on each one. But for me, the outside bit was a bit bland, and we've done it better in other games.
Oh, I didn't say it was good. I said it was graphically interesting. The whole game stuck balls.
Okay, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the minigame bits, but it's not brilliant. It's all right. I don't know, $9.95 and 77%. They I think Zap were like me. They were like, oh, the mini games are actually really good. But it's the bit in the middle that's a bit annoying. But I don't know, it does its job. The scrolling I thought was a bit jerky as well, and it reminded me of a bit of Oink as well. Sort of in that the visual style inside the mini games looked a bit like some of the Oink graphics. I thought, like sort of bas relief look and weirdness. There was a touch of that to it. It's the plot is stupid as well. Why is there just one circuit board missing? But I did quite like the way when you did actually do a mini game and bits of the circuit board filled in. I quite like that. It was all right.
Yeah, that was all right.
But if this was a budget mini game collection where it's like complete all these mini games and they're just coming at you fast, pacey, and as you said, with pacey controls, this would have been quite interesting. Like, right, do this one, do this one, do this one. You'd be like, oh, okay, trying to work it out. Yeah, full on with that. But as it is, got to justify £10, haven't there? It's CRL.
Yeah,
there we go. It's not worth 77%. Though you are right. It's another one of those we'll come across, which is neither one thing nor the other, and ends up being
crapper at both.
Yeah, unfortunately. There we go. I was hoping for good things, a discovery of riches, but instead we got nothing. Yeah, did you read the back of the box, by the way, that I posted in the agenda?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, with all of its crazy not so much there are misspellings in there, but
misspelling. It's terrible.
It's just written in stupid gibberish. I mean, it was just clearly cut and paste from something else and sort of thrown into that because there's nobody's bloody proofread it, have they? No,
nobody.
Hire the proofreaders. We'll post it in the show notes, I suppose, and you can discover the abomination for yourself. But don't expect great things.
Yes.
So, no, and there are terrible spelling errors in it. It's replete with errors.
Yeah, this mission is unprecedented, but president, spelled as in president, precedented.
All adds up to this was written by a 10-year-old or something.
Yeah, it's not great. I might post a picture of that because it ain't great.
It made me laugh. There's one sentence that made me laugh. It's just a description where it says, "Receive," he croaked huskily. It's like, croaked huskily? Who read this crap?
I don't know. Colonel Zweller's adjutant flashed on the screen. That sounds terrible.
Well, he's croaking huskily. I'm going to croak huskily.
You are summoned immediately to room 66. Confirm. Confirmed, he answered.
It's just stupid.
Yeah, it says a million light, and also as well, the Zap got it wrong because it says a million light years away lay the fractured hulk of the doomed Discovery, now a shielding post of a distant empire. Within its fragments lay the key to a secret so dark that no one had dared to try and discover it for 200 years.
Yeah, that's
put an extra zero in the Zap review.
I don't think it makes any sense anyway. So
it doesn't, but it's worth reading because it's stupid. They spell screaming
with
stupid. Screaming with 2 E's. Anyway, there we go. That's Discovery. Not very good. Overall, bit of nothing, neither one thing nor t'other.
Right.
Let's move along. Into X15 Alpha Mission.
Zig Zag Sputnik's latest album.
Yeah, or as you said, quite rightly last week, that sounds like a vector graphics game to me.
Yep.
And you were
right about that saddle.
You were right about that vector saddle. We'll go right through it. It won't exist.
It'll hurt your ass cheeks, that.
Anyway, X15 Alpha Mission. This is by John Ryzen, him who did Hero.
Yeah, I saw that. Crazy.
Yeah, we praised to high hell, out of Hero. So now we've got his back. John Ryzen's back in POG form with a vector graphics fight sim, I guess. It's more of a fight sim, in it. There's not much flight to this, or not much simulator.
It didn't last long enough to find out.
It's somewhere along these lines. Anyway, America is being threatened by nefarious terrorists who have aimed a deadly space station at them from orbit. A number of cities will be wiped off the map if they don't give in to their demands. You are
very, very elaborate plan. There's much, you don't have to launch a spaceship first before you then crash it into the Earth.
Absolutely,
a massive one.
But maybe it's Elon Musk. This is just not on. It's not. So you are sent up in the X-15 space plane to put an end to this nonsense in a 3D vector graphic shooter of sorts. And there you go. If that doesn't chill you to the bone, I don't know what will. So as I said, it's by John Ryzen. There's not much to this. The first you get, when the game boots up, you see basically the game screen, but which is most of it, like 3/4 of it, is taken up with useless UI. So much useless UI. I don't know what it was on about. There's so much in that UI that means nothing, does nothing,
yes.
tells you nothing, but it's flashing and beeping and lots of that. And in the top sort of I don't know, the center of the screen at the top. So the top center of the screen is the game screen. And so it just comes up with vector graphics going X15 alpha mission in there, spinning around in vector graphic. You know you're in for fun at this point. You press fire to start and you get a countdown to take off. And the first thing you got to do is take off. This took a while for me to work out. So
Same.
This is stupid. This is one of the most stupidest intros to a game. You've got to, essentially what happens is it counts down from 10 to 1 and then you get a bar it just says thrust, I think. And it's going, there's a bar going up and you've essentially got to, as soon as it starts, you've got to push up and press the fire button. And there's another bar underneath it in another sort of line and that will go up with the other bar. You've got to hold it all the way to the top and then it'll start going down. As soon as it starts going down, you pull down and your bar will start going down. You've got to match this pretty much exactly. So I don't know why you have to do this because once you figure it out, it's just boring. There's no challenge. It's just figuring out what the hell to do. Because failure to match this, it's game over. You failed. Stall,
your engines
crash.
have failed.
Yeah,
Bye.
that's it. Game over, dead, finished. Go back to I say back to the title screen, just the game window just changes because the game window is still the same. The layout of the screen is still exactly the same. It's like a U. Imagine a horseshoe shape, and in the gap is the game. That's pretty much how it sort of looks.
Good description, yeah.
And that's it. If you do manage to take off, and once you figure it out, it's not hard, just pointless, then it's onto the flight section. So this game is controlled completely by joystick. There's no keys. So this is all joystick. So all that UI stuff is for nothing because you've only got 4 directions and 8 directions and a fire button. It's not like you can do. And it basically tells you you've got to fly to your destination. There's a map, or I say a map, there's a grid as part of the UI. You're in the bottom left of it and your destination's in the top right. So you just got to essentially fly that direction. But this is trickier than it seems. The reason why is because you are constantly bombarded. This is like 3D wasps, but those wasps are vector helicopters. And they'll be coming at you no matter what, firing missiles at you no matter what, and you've got to avoid their missiles. There are also cruise missiles being fired at you. I think it's cruise missiles. Cruise missiles. Who are these terrorists?
Very well financed and very technical.
They have the ability to put a space station with some kind of, I guess it's nuclear power to wipe out loads of cities that are armed with cruise missiles that they could just fire off willy-nilly at you to stop you getting to the base across the other side. Because I never got there. I just kept getting killed. So essentially, if you take too many hits, it's game over. You can take a few. You can get hit about 3 or 4 times. That's it. There's supposed to be 3 sections. I don't know what they are. I couldn't get past the first one. And I didn't really want to even give a damn about the rest because I didn't like this at all. I can't attest to the next 2. Something seems to have gone missing from Hero to this because the thing what we praised Hero about was how well designed it was, how well it introduced all its mechanics, how it progressed, how it took you step by step by step by step into it, making it harder and harder each time. This is just none of that. It's just all gone. It's produced by Activision again, this. But that all seems to be missing from this. It just goes from 0 to full on immediately, and it's just there's no in between. It's just not very interesting. I mean, it's technically okay. The vector graphics are pretty good, I suppose, but they're only in a small part of the screen. And I suppose simplifying everything down to joystick controls is an interesting idea. Although, like I said, that illogical takeoff procedure is just nonsensical. But it's just too simple and frustrating to engage for more than a few minutes. You can't shoot anything at distance. So you have to wait until the helicopters are right in front of you. And they always go right in front of you to the side as well, before you can try and blow them up. And then they blow up in a particle effect. Boom. So it takes ages for them to close in. They're always firing at you. You've got avoiding the cruise missiles that are fired at you from the ground. It's a pain in the ass. You can't shoot them. They just come at you. There's like this blue line thing. So you have to either dive really low or climb high enough, but half the time you can't do it quick enough, so you just get hit. And the constant helicopter missiles coming at you mean you've got to constantly veer off course, because moving left or right, even slightly, your little icon where you're heading towards it, you can see the little thing moving towards you on the map thing, just moves you all over the shop. You're just going from left to right, and you'll suddenly be facing you've turned slightly to the left to avoid a cruise missile or another missile, and you're suddenly facing the other way completely. It's just rubbish. It's really bad. So I didn't really like this at all. It felt a bit like an attempt. It felt, and the way it looked with the sort of the line sort of missiles and stuff coming at you, like Star Wars from the arcade, but set on land.
Yeah,
so
there is a bit of that.
It felt a bit like he was aiming to do something like that, but it's nowhere near as good. Without all the Star Wars stuff and the use the Force, Luke, and all that kind of stuff, the repetitive nature of this, it fails on just about all accounts. It's stupid to take off, boring to play, and just pointless and just a really dull. I mean, it's called X15 Alpha Mission. You should be able to come up with a good name, good thing based on that. It's a good name, but this is rubbish. I'm not taking off my X15 again, I'm afraid. I didn't like this at all. What about you? 10 quid as well. No. 46%. Way too high. No.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it. Of course I didn't. I knew it would be bloody crap from the minute I saw the name. Another futuristic flight simulator. Yay. Done with vectors. Why wouldn't you do it with any other way? It's the way to do it on a machine that has demonstrated time and time again that vectors are not its strength, even if you put them in a tiny window. It's not going to help. There's only been very few games that managed to pull anything off like this, and this isn't one of them.
Nope.
All the usual things are here, of course. The mixture of spritey sprites and vectors, all blurrily fast in front of your tiny window. Lots of zooming around, lots of crashing. I crashed pretty much instantly, almost all the time, really, up until the point when I managed to sort of figure out, as you did, to take off. And then after that, I thought, why am I even doing this? Because I don't like these kind of games.
Yep.
So when I had taken off noticed that the busy UI was neither use nor ornament, could have been just, you may as well not have been there. It could have just been simply a black screen for all the difference it made. It had no bearing on what I was doing with the game. And I generally don't obviously like these kind of games anyway, especially when they're like this. And they run like this. So it's the same old vectors with the same old bloody vector problems. And for me, this one isn't always necessarily about the speed, because they've obviously mitigated the speed of the vectors by shrinking it down to the point when you're looking at it through a stamp. All right, that's a trick. That's a way of doing it, I suppose. It's a trick. You don't render as much of the screen in vector, therefore exercising the problem with a simple logic. Less graphics, more speed. All right, I get that. Didn't work though, does it? It's still lines over green. It's still lines over green. And it might be, and this one did have bonus speedy stripes, didn't it? So it had that kind of rastery stripey effect on the bottom.
It did, yeah.
To give you the sense of speed. So you had raster speedy stripes and lines over green and some lines over blue. And then, of course, when you're in the sky, you have the tokenistic 9 million mile an hour sprite thing that just blasts before your eyes. Think, what was that? Was that helicopter? Was the vectors? What was it? Because as with all of these things, the worst thing about this for me was that because everything was condensed to a small screen, you're already focusing your eyes on that. That was starting to give me a headache from the very minute I started playing this game.
Yep.
Then I was trying to concentrate on a very small area of that small screen, and then I just made the realization that what the hell was I doing that for? Because I hate these kind of games.
You do.
So I gave it a bit more legs, thinking, okay, maybe there's something in it. Didn't really find anything in this that interested me in the slightest, and actually thought this was a really poor game. So I'm sure there's a mission in there somewhere, and all that blah 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 blah. I didn't like this at all, so I'm never going to do it. So no thanks. Nope. I won't be attempting X16, X17 or any of its crappy sequels. No, thank you. 10 quid. Zapped gave it 46%, didn't they? Shocked me, really. I don't know quite what they were basing that 46% on. Maybe the percentage of the screen that's got the game in it, I think. So, anyway, arse cake. Load of arse cake. Not for me, this.
Not for me either. I really didn't like this at all. But
nope.
We were never going to, were we? Let's face it.
No, because as we've said a million times, if you look at Nebulus in the same episode of this, in the same issue as that, look at Nebulus, look at how the 64 games can be made with sprites and all those things that the 64 does really well with its hardware. Then just go further along the magazine, look at X15 and go, and if you try vectors with a computer that does all that wonderful Nebulus stuff, you end up with this piece of crap. Don't do them anymore. Stop doing them. They're rubbish.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. Oh, there we go. X15 Alpha Mission. No, not at all. Got one more left. Let's get into it. Graham, do you zig or do you zag in Zig Zag?
Well, that's a very famous quote, isn't it? When the world Zig Zag. That's from one of the famous marketing guys. I forget the guy's name. Advertising agency guy. Anyway, by the by. So this is Zig Zag. It's $9.95, 92%, 92% Sizzler, I believe.
It's a Sizzler, yes.
Sizzler, this game is. And it's created, and the music and everything in this game is by Tony Crowther. It's Tony Crowther game, everyone. Tony Crowther.
Golf clap.
And we've not had a lot of success with Tony Crowther games, really. They tend to fall into these sort of distinct, sometimes it's too hard, sometimes it's not, but let's just dive in and see what this is all about. You are a pupil of the 12th Dimension School of Starflight, and as such, to graduate, you must complete the ultimate challenge, which is to fly through, the Matrix of Zog. Okay. And gather the 8 crystals in no more than 144 minutes. Passage through the Matrix of Zog is not easy, as it is not only festooned with enemy aliens, trap switches, and puzzles. Indeed, there are 7 types of aliens, in fact, that will hinder your progress. That's zigzags, homers, drifters, attractors, bouncers, corkscrews, and cubes. There's also ramps, traps, and disappearing barriers, and a few other obstacles in your path. The shtick here is that you can only turn corners using special directional prisms that will bounce you in the allocated direction. To change the forward direction of the ship, you must run into the prisms on the floor or the walls, but only the prisms will allow you to turn 90 degrees and also turn 180 degrees if you hit the wall. So that's all decided by how the prisms are oriented. So hitting a wall will always reverse your direction, but hitting a prism will send you in that direction. And if you miss that prism, and you will, then you've got to kind of bounce and navigate your way back to find it. And trust me, you're going to be going backwards and forwards a lot in this game.
Yes.
So you control your spaceship with the joystick, and you can move higher and lower, he said, and side to side.
7. Oh.
But to turn, of course, you're at the mercy of the prisms and whatever 90-degree angle and bounce you might be afflicted with at that particular state. So you've got to traverse the matrix of Zog somewhat like a pinball, I think, felt, and seek out the crystals, finding the best path through the prisms. There are also switches on the floors and walls, which, when triggered, will open up new avenues for you to explore and bounce through. If you hit or are shot by any of the aliens, which sort of are all over the place, you will lose one of your 5 lives. Lose all of them, and it's game over. If you do lose a life, and you will, it's back to the start point of the matrix for you, unless you happen to have found a save zone, which there are in the game. But I found that if you haven't got the save zone, going back to that beginning bit after you've bounced around for a while, it's very disheartening, let me tell you. Your heart sinks a little. Shooting the aliens does give you money, which you can spend in shops that are also dotted around the matrix. When you do that, you can buy upgrade extras, which are all designed to help you with your mission. They won't, but it's nice to know that they're there.
They might.
In fact, there are 3 special zones in the game. There's the save zone, which obviously allows you to save them, and you'll find these by bouncing around and entering them. And there's the death zone, which leads to instant death, which is possibly the most annoying zone to exist in a game, really, of this type, when you don't really have any control over your ability to stop. And the shop zone, obviously, which I've also mentioned, where you can buy actual maps, shields, and all sorts of other bits and bobs. X-ray vision, which allows you to see through.
Well, you need to buy a U-turn, you see, and that saves you from going to the death zone.
There's the U-turns as well. Yeah, you can get those, but you can only get so many of those. If all that sounds like hard work, there are actually other options to play. So obviously you've got to get through and get the crystals, and that's the game. But there are other options and ways to play this. So you can play the game without the puzzles. On the homepage, you can play just as a shooter, which, well, not actually allowing you to complete the game per se, does give you some options for mapping, really. So you can actually just go around shooting stuff and sort of figure out where the maps are, because all of the gates and everything are down, and you can just sort of fly around and shoot things if you want to do that. So there are those 2 modes. There's Brain Teaser and Zapper. So Brain Teaser being the puzzle mode, Zapper being the shoot everything mode. And the first one supposedly corresponds to a normal difficulty level. It depends how you define difficulty, really, doesn't it? And obviously the Zapper mode is all the prisms in place.
It is a difficulty.
Yeah, so it's something like that. So this is played from a 3D isometric kind of viewpoint, a bit like a sort of almost a bouncy Zaxxon, really, but sort of multi-directional Zaxxon.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of control. And I haven't actually got a problem with the graphics, really, in this game. The graphics are very well engineered as you sort of zip about. The instructions for the game are written in kind of a quirky way as well. And so then they're quite interesting. So if you do get to look at the instructions, and there's quite a lot to do in the game. There's quite a lot of stuff that goes on. And I've described all of those things. So you can get different things like U-turns and things that allow you to sort of navigate and the nuances of all of the 3D maze of the matrix of Zog that you're in. And the game is well engineered. There's no denying it. Tony Crowther is a clever programmer, and the way the graphics work and the speed of the scrolling is really good here. And the sprites are okay. They weren't bad. They look very Zaxxon-like, and it's a bit like a mishmash between Zaxxon and Marble Madness, actually, in a weird way, with a flying spaceship that can't be stopped apart from if you get the right thing and bounces around a lot. And the sounds are quite good, but the bouncing is really, really difficult to get your head around. Now, I found this less fun less fun and more infuriating, in fact, this game. And I gave it some time, and as I sort of played it more and more, I kind of got into the rhythm of the game a little bit. So it's easy to write this game off when you first load it up and you got it and you're bouncing around and you're hitting prisms and you're going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and up and down and backwards and forwards and you're running over a switch and you didn't mean to, and it does drive you mad. And it's worthwhile spending time just persevering with a little bit of that, going through the other game, so going through the other difficulty game and going out of Brain Teaser and going into the Zapper mode, just to sort of familiarize yourself with how you control things, how you can maneuver around, how you can fly up and down, and sort of how you can start to get to grips with it. Because as you do that, and as you start to get to grips with the way it controls, you find that actually the game is quite interesting. It just takes a while to get there, and you really have to really persevere with it, because it does drive you mad when you get blown up and you go back to the start, or if you have to take a wrong turn and you sort of find yourself bouncing, and you can sort of find yourself almost trapped at certain points, and you think, oh my God, I'm so frustrating. Your bullets can be shot and bounce off some of the prisms as well. And there's little tricks and there's little bits of, as you have to play this game quite a bit, I think. It's not a steep learning curve. It's just a learning curve that requires you to play
it and play it and persevere with it until you figure out the best way of controlling it. Once you finally get that and you start to be able to navigate your way around the 3D maze and the matrix and understand that if you hit that prism and then you do this and you get there, but you don't have to hit the prism, you can just avoid it and you'll bounce back. And once you get into that rhythm and that logic, you actually have a better experience with it. And the game actually plays pretty well in that respect. And what you end up with is quite an interesting but difficult and highly challenging puzzler that does break the norm a bit. This could have just not had that bouncing thing in the prisms and it could have just flown around but what you'd have ended up with is you've got to carefully navigate your way around the 3D caves, and if you hit a wall you die. I like that this doesn't do that. I like that this is kind of the opposite of that. Yes, the bouncing is annoying, but it is a central mechanic. And I just sort of, as I played it, I thought, do you know what, I'm gonna go with the logic of this game. I'm gonna stop fighting it and trying to treat it, stop treating it like one game and just deployed my thoughts around, let's play this the way that they've designed it. I think I went into it thinking it was kind of a shooter around a maze, and it's not. It's a puzzle game where you have to really think about your route through. Once I got through to that sort of stage, I actually found myself really liking it. So my initial thoughts were that there's a lot of horror in this, but I actually came to really quite like it and really embrace the idea of how clever this game really is. And I really enjoyed my time with it, and because of that, but it took a while to get there, and it really did. However, I think that perhaps you do have that other mode, which does allow you to sort of play through some of the mazes and stuff. I think just perhaps, I don't know, a little bit more affordance here and there might have meant for a bit of a better in. But I also think to myself, well, if you did that, if you speeded that process up, you wouldn't get to the point where you can fully control it, and then you wouldn't get it. Mm-hmm. So I think it has to be done the way it's done. It feels laborious, but in actuality, you're learning with every iteration, and you get better at controlling it. And once you finally master that, there's a really great game under the hood here. Now, Zach rated this pretty highly at 90%, and I agree with them. I think this is genuinely unique take on this kind of 3D isometric game, collecting game. And it's easily one of the best Tony Crowther games we've played. And like I said, technically, this has got some real clever stuff going on in it, because the way you move around that maze is one of the fastest we've seen in terms of the way entire chunks of the screen disappear so you can see the view. Yeah. It's really clever, that. Mm-hmm. Really nice production values. The opening sequence as well, really nice demo-y vibes to it. Really
that title screen's ace.
So you got this marvelous sort of filmic almost title screen. Then when you start the game, you get this really nice raster wavy thing, and it's marvelous. I love stuff like that. And that's what sold me the production, and that's why I felt I persevered with it. And I'm glad I did, actually. I'm glad I persevered. I could have written this off after my 9 millionth bounce around, going, "Oh my god, this is driving me mad." Once I embraced the idea of that and thought, you know what, this is the way you have to play it. So let's go with that. Once I did that, I had a really good time with Zig Zag, and it proved to be. Now I've never come across it before either on the C64 ever, so it was my first time with it. Genuinely thought it was really, really cool. So I really, really like Zig Zag. I definitely recommend people who like that kind of game go try it. I'd certainly say persevere with it. Don't just fall for the, oh my god, I'm bouncing around and it's uncontrollable and I'm doing my head in. Go with it and persevere with it, because there's a really clever game in there if you do. It's really, really rewarding when you finally find your way to some really deeper parts and some of the crystals. It's really good. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much exactly the same. I almost exactly the same learning curve as well. There's a lot to this game. And I thought it's well considered and well designed. As you've written out, technically it's really impressive, with smooth glitch-free scrolling in 4 directions. The way the maze reveals itself with walls disappearing and appearing is well done, and sound and music are all very good. The controls are smooth and responsive, and the options open to the player are well thought out, giving you that blaster, zapper, or brain teaser mode. There's lots of different ways to do this, and it's all very good. The title screen is amazing. That opening credits where it asks you for your initials when you start off and all that kind of stuff is brilliant, really good. It does offer you codes for progression if you get to a safe area as well, so you can start from there again, and that's quite nice. So it's great, and I've mentioned that before. I wanted to see it in other games as well. Give me codes to sort of save states and things and whatever. And the whole concept, it just works. You're right. It takes a bit of time. You've got to get it, and because part of the reason is because Zaxxon is just flying to the top right. I found it was when I was going towards the top left or bottom right, and left and right are still the same in relation to the way I was going. You have to sort of change, you have to sort of almost wire your brain quickly differently. Do you know what I mean? If you're going up and then you suddenly you bounce back, left seems to be right and right is left.
Yeah.
So it's that's what I found the struggle. But once I kind of take a step back, right, okay, and that I thought it worked. It's fun to play. The presentation is first class, but yeah, it is on the hard side, but what isn't. But I don't think it's unfair. It's fun to play and make your way through the maze and try and collect the crystals. I thought the power-ups were useful, easily accessed. They remind me of how you access them in Star Paws, the way you have that little menu which you cycle through with space and then press fire to use the one you want to use, and they're quite useful. And I thought finally we have a Tony Crowther game where the design matches the technical skills that he obviously has. We've seen things like Kettle, Trap, that god-awful Centurions, whatever it was. No, GoBots. Things like that. So, right. We've never doubted Tony Crowther's technical skills. It's just the design of the game's always been let out. Here, it all works, and that's good. It's really good to see. And I put with games like this and that Red Lead, it's good to see that the C64 is more than capable of doing these isometric games at speed and looking nice with it. As you rightly said, it's a deserved sizzler. Yeah. And exactly like you, not something I ever played back in the day either. But it's certainly something I enjoyed my time with now. I'm glad I played this. This was good. I wasn't expecting it to be, but I was like, maybe it's another isometric thing. They looks like a bit like Red Lead. What's this going to be like? Tony Crowther, okay. But no, really good. Really enjoyed this. Came out of nowhere, didn't know what to expect, and yeah, good fun. But I think your words of warning are spot on. Don't expect to go into this and just be ace at it. It takes a bit of time and a bit to sort of acclimatize yourself to how it plays and things. And flying into a wall and bouncing, not dying, is refreshing. So it's nice to see that kind of the way that works. I liked it. No, yeah, great game. I really enjoyed it. Good stuff. Nice one to end on for the half.
Did you try, by the way, reversing the controls? Because you can reverse them so that down is up and up is down. I didn't know if that would appeal to you more or less.
I did try it, yes. I found that much for muchness. I didn't really mind that.
Because left and right remain the same, don't they? So
left and right remain the same, but they change on the fly in the direction you're going. Yeah. So it's a weird one, up and down. I think I actually found it easier playing the normal way.
I didn't try it. I just know that you tend to reverse your controls, don't you?
I do, but I think that's in first person mode. When normally in this kind of thing, I'm up is up, down is down. I don't think that bothers me. I think I did try both of them, but it's good to see that those kind of options are available to the player. Good game. Zig Zag. There we go. That's it. That's it for this half. That's 6 games we looked at. Nice bread. Not sure about the meat in the middle. Is a way to describe that lot, I think.
Yeah, it's a good touch.
Nice sourdough sandwich filled with.
Making me hungry.
Gone off rancid meat.
Yeah. Mouldy pork.
Naughty pork, did you say?
Mouldy pork.
I thought you said naughty pork.
Ooh, bit of naughty pork.
A sandwich full of naughty pork.
You cheeky monkey.
What you got? What sandwich you got? Oh, his wife's done me naughty pork again.
Got some slappy beef and some naughty pork.
And some cuddly chicken.
I'll try the slappy beef, please. That sounds good.
It's here all week. Hey! Slappy beef.
Slappy beef, everyone. Slappy beef.
Slappy beef. Right, on that note, we're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back very shortly, where we'll be looking at film and TV for the end of the year, December 1987. So please stay with us.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
And we're back. We've got film and TV in December 87. Let's get into it. Actually, it's Christmas in it, so there'll probably be some Christmassy stuff here. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe.
16th of December, Yorkshire Television announced that 321 is to be cancelled as a television series, but will continue to be shown in a series of special shows. An Olympic special and Christmas special are shown in 1988, and after that, it's cancelled altogether. For this
series, is 2 a series? So it's just going to be. There's going to be a series of shows. How many is going to be in that series? 2. An Olympic special seems really niche.
It really does, yeah. They probably
all the
had
things
lots
to be special about, that's the nichest out.
I'm thinking like Steve Ovett, Daley Thompson was on that, Sebastian Coe, and I
all
hate
confused,
Sebastian Coe.
Horribly confused. Yeah. What a Christmas present that was to Ted Rogers, wasn't it? Right, Ted, happy Christmas. Oh, thanks ever so much. Great show as usual. Thanks. Yeah, we're cancelling you. We'll bring you back for 2 specials and that'll be done. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
But we like to... Here's Dusty Bin.
That's what you could have won. Well, we're going to do a series of special shows, Ted. Oh, right. It's great. Thanks. After 2, yeah, you're done. Go away.
After 2, you're getting cancelled. Oh, God, that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a note here that they had to cancel the show because nobody knew what the hell it was about.
No, it's the weirdest show.
It gradually descended into no sense. Now, I've found a real example of a clue.
Do we need to describe what 321 is, just for people who may not know?
Is it describable? I mean, it's a game show, isn't it?
It's a game show with, I think there's 3 couples come on. There's 3 couples. There's Ted Rogers. There's 3 couples, and there's a load of skits.
Yeah, Ted Rogers is the host, yeah.
Ted Rogers is the host, and there's a series of skits that happen where it's like people famous from the clubs of Yorkshire come on and do these weird sort of bit, so it might be a song, it might be a little comedy bit or whatever, and then when they've done they go over to the couples, and Ted Rogers is stood around a desk or whatever in the middle of the studio, and they essentially give them this clue. So that this clue will be a rhyme, and it'll either be for a prize or thing, and then they have to work it out and they have to guess what it is or whatever, and then at the end of the show there's one left and they have to try and whittle it down to winning the best prize that's left, but the thing is, one of them is an actual bin.
Yeah, dustbin, yeah.
It's a dustbin, so you could actually leave this show with a dustbin, which is one of the worst things ever, really, when you think about it.
So
you go through an entire nonsense of evening and you walk away with a dustbin.
So I think you're right. I think the 3-2-1 part is the number of couples you start with 3, and then it's down to 2, and then it's down to the final couple, and I think it's also down to the clues and
Ted's fingers.
Ted Rogers could do this hand gesture, like a gang sign, really. Yeah, it's like that was his thing. That was his gang token. So anyway, the end result of this, it led to them that Ted Rogers would give them a clue, and then they would have to figure this out based on a series of events. If you just write to go, so here is a real clue from the show. This is an honest to God real clue. The Archies might provide a clue. Not strolling, but he's going to. Accompanied by some sheet music, that was. So they gave him a piece of sheet music. That was the clue. The Archies might provide a clue. Not strolling, but he's going to.
Uh-huh.
Right, that's so. The explanation for this. Okay, so this is after they'd gone through the debate and given their answer. This is the honest to God, the real explanation. Well, the first 3 letters of Archies might have been clue enough, but he also said not strolling, but he's going to. Well, if you take away Hess, H-E-S from Archies, all you have left is Arc. If we rearrange that with the sheet music, you're left with Music Maestro, please. So what do you think that means? Maestro, the British Leyland Maestro, you've won the car. What?
I don't know. It's just gibberish.
That's, I mean, it's like if you get Arc and rearrange it with the sheet music, you're left with Music Maestro, please. I'm like, how?
I don't know.
Anyway, they won the car. So they won the car. They didn't win the bin, but that could have ended either way.
It could have, yeah. It's quite easy to have made that into a bin. Not strolling, but he's going to. But he's going to because he's walking towards the back of the garden where the bin is.
Where's the bin? You won the bin. Oh, dusty bin. He comes out, little radio controlled bin.
Yeah, it was.
I was hoping that some genius, had created an archive of all of the 3-2-1 explanations and the clues. They haven't. I found that one on a rogue site somewhere. But if ever there was a blog waiting to be made, it's the 3-2-1 clue blog. So if nobody does that, that means somebody's got to sit and watch every episode of 3-2-1. That is a testament to your strength if you do that.
And then write down the clue. Fast forward to the explanation.
Oh man, can you imagine? I mean, you'd be bonkers by the end of that.
You'd have to put up with Ted Rogers' like striped jackets as well. He had a penchant for striped. They looked like he looked like he was at the seaside. He looked like the mayor from Jaws every week.
He did look like the mayor from Jaws. He was a bit of an oddbod, wasn't he, Ted Rogers, with his little 3-2-1 gang signal, but.
Absolutely. And I always wondered what the end to his name was as well, because it sounds like the first half of a sentence.
Ted Rogers, question mark.
Exactly.
He was on blankety blank for all the wrong reasons. Ted Rogers, blank. Ted Rogers, blank.
Ted Rogers, blankety blank.
Ted Rogers, blank. I'm not even going to say it. I was about to say something very rude then. I'm not. Let's quickly move because I don't want to offend Ted Rogers or his family or estate.
More than we have done.
No, but no. You've won the car.
Yay. 18th of December, Frank Boff, who launched breakfast television on 17th of January 1983, presents Breakfast Time for the final time.
Yes, he was taken to a corridor and
Was this
neutralized.
before the prostitutes and cocaine scandal?
Alleged. Yeah, I think so.
Alleged. It was in the papers.
Yeah,
There were
I think it
photos.
was. I don't know. I couldn't remember that till you've just said it, and I suddenly had all the flashbacks of the horror that befell.
I mean, Frank Boff he was cuddly Frank Boff, wasn't he? And suddenly we found out that he was
very Frank. Yeah, very nice.
Full on naughty Frank Boff.
He had a dark side.
Yeah, he'd gone full on Ted Rogers.
He had. Yes, he had. Yes, and he's gone full 3-2-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew.
You want to see those fingers.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
But yeah, so Frank Boff, cuddly Frank Boff, he was gone. 18th December. Happy Christmas, Frank. Away you go.
Happy Christmas. They were on a roll.
I know, they're just axing, elderly presenters left, right and centre. 25th of December, Christmas Day highlights on BBC One include Julie Andrews, The Sound of Christmas, a show featuring music and presented by Julie Andrews from Salzburg, Austria, and the British television premieres of both Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Terms of Endearment.
Wow.
Let's stick with that bit for the first bit.
Nothing says Christmas, does it? Like revisiting happy songs from film musicals set in Nazi-occupied Austria with a family on the run for their lives, as well as then watching someone eating monkey brains or getting their hearts ripped out or burned to death or even drinking mind-altering drugs from a decomposing skull, let alone then being squashed to death in a rock crusher. And of course, then after that, wash that down with watching someone die of cancer and having to give up their kids in Terms of Endearment. Pass me my party out and cracker. This is going to be the best Christmas ever. Chirpy, that, isn't it? Who would put those things on Christmas Day? Goodness me.
I don't know.
BBC. It's pre-EastEnders, isn't it? Oh, no, EastEnders was around at this time, wasn't it?
EastEnders is around. We've talked about EastEnders loads of time. We've got, don't forget, we've got Stolen Hearts singing in the charts.
Oh, of course we've. Yeah, so this is normally EastEnders puts an extra layer of doom in that mix. So God knows what happened there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, ITV enjoyed a record-breaking audience when more than 26 million viewers tuned in for the Christmas Day episode of Corrie, called Coronation Street, in which Hilda Ogden, played by Gina Alexander, makes her last appearance in the show after 23 years.
23 years of playing
26 million people. That's half the population of the UK.
Yeah, but I've noted here, that's 25.9 million passed out in front of the TV in a brown food-based coma. And 0.1 million that were alert and able to function. So they're saying viewing figures, but they were just people who were just facing forward. They lacked the ability and strength to be able to maneuver themselves to any other position.
They couldn't actually reach the remote control or get up and change channel if you were looking at
so much
remote
food,
control.
their eyes had stopped. Their eyes had stopped moving left and right. They're just frozen until the food had digested.
Hilda Ogden was seen through a brown haze.
Absolutely. And I put a note there. There's also a tune by the Skids called TV. I think it's called TV Themes.
Yeah.
With Hilda Ogden and all that lot in it. So I'll put a link to that. Albert Tatlock. No. Interesting that the guitarist from that band also went on to be in Big Country. There you go.
Wow. There you go. 30th of December, Channel 4 airs Salute to ATV.
What?
An evening of programmes celebrating ATV, that's Anglia Television, and including episodes of Sunday Night at the London Palladium, The Saint, and Edward VIII.
Why?
I don't know. But remember, we talked about this. I think it was the previous year.
Yeah.
They did it with 30 Years of Granada, didn't they, or something?
They did, yeah, exactly that.
And we
We
said exactly the same. We're like, why are you filling your airwaves with a channel that's nothing to do with you?
Yeah, and it is cheap TV. And now, I think we said it about the other one as well. It's the bread and butter of Channel 5 now is these. Let's look at old TV shows.
True.
They're now just pick a channel. Now every channel has, but this time it's very niche. No, Grampian will be on there next season. We're going to celebrate an evening of Grampian. It's only going to be an hour and a half long.
True. I mean, there's no There's no Bootsy and Snudge in this lot. So
Bootsy, I forgot about Bootsy and Snudge. Bootsy and Snudge. Bootsy and Snudge.
I'm covered in snudge.
I always drop my snudge on him. Always. We hadn't sung about Bootsy and Snudge for a while, are you, Bootsy? I'm all right, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Still snudging. Yeah,
covered in it. Covered in the stuff.
Yeah. We won't wash off. It never does. No,
absolutely.
It's like black spider web.
It's dyed my eyebrows white.
I tell you what, though, you can clean up 2p coins with it. That's great. That's great. That's great, Snudge. Oh, see ya.
It's better than
good that you've got hobbies. It's good that you've got hobbies, but back you go.
Good old Bootsy and Snudge. We roll them out at the end of every year. 31st of December is in an unusual move for a pre-recorded television series. The chimes of Big Ben are integrated into an episode of EastEnders on BBC One. character Den Watts, played by Leslie Grantham, brought a television into the bar of the Queen Vic, watched the chimes in their entirety, and the episode resumed.
Weird.
As I've noted here, I love the fact they had to bring a TV into a pub. Like, that was a thing. Like, reel it in. Like, that was not a thing back then. You didn't have tellies in pubs. Just no. Pubs were for drinking and smoking.
They didn't, though, did they?
Playing
just
darts and snooker. And
Jukeboxes,
some music.
yeah.
You didn't have TV on. Imagine that now. Thought of going to TV in a pub, but can't walk into most pubs these days without being assaulted from all angles by various channels of Sky Sports.
Well, let's be fair. Back then, if you were brave enough to put a 36-inch TV on the wall, you needed strong walls and brackets because those things were massive and heavy, dangerous. And remember the TV brackets you used to put them on, like shelves, like armed shelves that you put up. And as soon as you put that TV on, it's like there's a creaking sound. You're like, is this going to hold? Because this TV is like 50 kilos. Is this going to land on someone?
Is that a supporting wall? No. Oh God.
The whole thing's coming down.
Is that just plaster? Oh God.
I just remember even myself. For a while I had a TV on a sort of a portable thing on the wall. I'm not sure why really, but I did.
You did, yes.
And it was like this sort of white, sort of turnable thing. I think it's so I could turn it for some reason. I'm not sure why. It really didn't really help any.
And that was just a 14-inch portable, wasn't it?
Yeah, and even then I was nervous about putting that on there because they're all screen heavy, these cathode ray things, aren't they?
Yeah, they lean forward dangerously.
Bloody nightmare.
But imagine him just wheeling in a telly.
It's bizarre.
What are you doing, Den?
We're watching Big Ben, everyone. Watch the telly now. All right, down your drink, right? It's watching the telly. Okay, since you say so, that's exactly what we'll do.
It's weird. Oh dear. BBC aired a 5-hour whistle test special to welcome in 1988. Christ.
I like to whistle test.
I know you do. The special aired from 9:35 p.m. on New Year's Eve to 2:55 a.m. on New Year's Day, and it took a look back through the archives in what is the programme's final outing. It would be 3 decades later in 2018 before a new edition of the programme was broadcast.
Yes, the whistle test was a classic with old whispering, what's his name?
He was gone by though.
I thought he was back for that. I thought he was back.
Was he back for that one? He probably was. They probably wheeled him out.
Bob Harris, is it?
Yeah, Whispering Bob Harris, yeah.
And of course, it was also used to be called the Old Grey Whistle Test, didn't it? And they changed it to Whistle Test. Now, there's the question of trivia. Do you know why it was called the Old Grey Whistle Test?
Is this a 3, 2, 1 clue?
No. This is a genuine question.
If I take the last three letters of whistle,
well, you said
PLE, that means let.
No, genuine question.
No, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you how I know this as well. This, whether it's true or not, I don't know. You can check it. Maybe it is. I've always just taken it as read because the guy that told me this was Ben Daglish, famous C65 music composer. And he said that the people who used to stand outside music studios back in the day, like Abbey Road, they used to have, essentially there was like security guards, but they used to dress them in like long grey coats. And they got named the Old Greys. That's what they were called, Old Greys. And over a period of people recording in the studio, they used to come outside, the producers used to come to the Old Greys who stood outside and say, after they'd been recording, and these guys used to stand outside and be basically listening all day, they'd say, can you hum any of the songs you've heard today? Whistle any of the songs you've heard today? And if they could whistle the songs that they'd been listening to, they knew it was going to be a hit. Hence, the Old Grey Whistle Test.
I don't know if that's true or not. I'll take your word for it.
No, that was straight from the mouth of Ben Daglish. I had no reason to disbelieve him. He was quite a quirky character. It could be complete bullshit, but I quite like that idea.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Sounds like it could be. Who knew? Finally, ITV front caps are shown before programmes on ITV for the last time after 32 years.
Let's see why. That's why Ted Rogers was gone. The front caps were never safe.
Always good to see Ted's gone. At least I know my front caps are safe.
Bizarre. I did find one to try and find out what an ITV front cap actually was.
Isn't it that?
I think so.
That noise and that sort of that wide would open.
They create like shortened graphic versions of things.
Yeah, because they were on all different. Because ATV had the Angler TV sort of double sort of thingy, and Thames had the. Was it Thames had the night or that? No, Thames had the London Bridge in it.
Yeah.
One of them had the knight on a horse.
Yeah. Time
Tees and all them ones.
Yeah. Yes.
Then anyway, so I think that this was probably. I guess this was because ITV was becoming ITV, wasn't it? Not regional station.
Yeah, it was kind of changing, wasn't it?
So it was becoming a sort of a nationwide station rather than regional stuff.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it was.
There we go. Only a couple of new shows this month. 13th of December was the Beiderbecke tapes. Do you know anything? Did you ever watch these?
No, I didn't watch any of the Beiderbecke trilogy at all.
It's the second
a bit
serial.
like James Bolam.
Yeah, second serial in the Beiderbecke trilogy starred James Bolan and Barbara Flynn as school teachers, Trevor Chaplin and Jill Swinburne. When a tape recording of a conversation about nuclear waste inadvertently falls into Trevor's hands, Trevor and Jill find themselves being pursued by national security agents. Sounds really convoluted and unbelievable.
Yeah, and cue lots of jokes about Y-fronts.
All right. Why?
Because it's bound to have C and D or somebody in there, and their logo look like Y-fronts. So.
Oh, I get it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Them, so I
think it was a bit too serious for that. If it was, it would be met with wry laughter rather than canned laughter.
Yeah, because it wasn't. It's easy to think of it as like a comedy, but it wasn't a comedy, was it? It was just played. It was more about the banter between James Bolam and Barbara Flynn. I think there was kind of a more dialogue-y.
Was it? I thought it was a thriller. Was it a thriller?
No, it wasn't a comedy. I'm saying it was more about the dialogue between them two than them being chased around, with nuclear waste in his pants or whatever. Sound very pleasant.
As Y-fronts would hold anything.
They're very strong.
They're very strong. 70s Y-fronts would keep anything in.
Yeah, thank God.
They had to. We always put them on Ted Rogers.
Yeah, well, they'd always end up with a 2p sort of piss stain on them, wouldn't they? From where someone's got a dewdrop and hadn't quite, got rid of it.
Oh, you're struggling to find the opening.
Yeah, exactly. So there'd always be,
Which size is it?
Especially, if you as a youngster, when you always end up with that. You look down and you think, oh, I've bloody dewdropped. I've got a dog nose. I've been dog nosed.
It's always wet. That's how you know it's healthy.
Okay. So it's a secret shot into your teenage life there, which is horrific.
What my mum told me.
God's sake, quickly move on.
26th of December is a bit of Fry and Laurie.
Do you know, the sad thing is with that, I remember it being funny, but I don't remember why.
Yeah, I kind of, it wasn't one I really got massively into.
I remember Stephen Fry hitting Hugh Laurie quite a lot, hitting him over the head and doing quite a lot of physical humour with him. And I remember it getting quite physical with them. I don't know if that was part of it. I just remember a bit of that. I remember clipping him over the back of the head and got in that sort of Fawlty Towers style, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I think there was stuff like that in it. I mean, they would go on to do the TV show
Jeeves and Wooster,
wasn't it? Yeah, they would go on to do that, and then obviously Hugh Laurie would go on to become massive in America with House.
Yeah, and Stephen Fry ends up playing the same guy, but in every film. But still, he's always good in it. Yeah,
and they were always great in Blackadder as well when they turned up.
Yeah, and of course they gave us the advert. Do you remember the advert where he bought the apartment? Compact and bijou, Peter. Compact and bijou.
Oh yes, they did. Yeah.
So they did a little bit of advertising around that time, and that again gives you an indication of they had a kind of a sense of dry British style, sort of upper class sort of humour in them. It was quite good in that way.
Yeah, they were the Oxbridge
type thing.
Yes,
they were. Yeah,
Oxbridge footlights from Emma Thompson and all that lot, weren't there? And Tony.
Yeah, and the young ones. Yeah,
they all came from that.
Yes. I got a Porsche. That lot.
Exactly. Yeah. There we go. That's TV. What we got going on for film though? 11th of December, Spaceballs.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this today because I thought I was going to watch, and I actually do not think I've watched Spaceballs since the 80s.
Yeah. Now, I actually watched it not recently, I have to say, but within the space of the last sort of 18 months, I watched Spaceballs. And because I quite like Mel Brooks comedies, I quite like Blazing Saddles, I quite like all of them, even that sort of, what is it, The Weird History of the World Part 1 or whatever, which he did was kind of weird. Yeah. So, but this one is the sort of point when it's not always funny, I think, and it's something that comes back to haunt him a bit with that Robin Hood one that he did.
Oh, that's terrible, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But it's just this. It's sort of heading towards that style. It's less Blazing Saddles, although that is kind of like that. But there is parts of that like this. But it's just parts of it aren't very funny. And
this is the parody period, isn't it, where you had things like Hot Shots. So it's coming on the back of the airplane stuff had come along and rewritten what Mel Brooks's cinema humor was.
I don't know if that came after this a bit. I think, but
no, Airplane was early 80s.
No, not Airplane. I mean the parodies of all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is nowhere near the same league as Airplane or Airplane 2 or anything like that. It's more like Blazing Saddles, but sort of space. Obviously, a Star Wars Mickey take.
Yeah.
So, and there's some jokes in here that made me laugh. I mean, you've got Pizza the Hut instead of Jabba the Hutt. And I quite like it when he goes to ludicrous speed. He's called Darth Helmet, isn't he, the main baddie in it?
Yeah, my favourite bit in it is where they watch the video.
Yeah, I was going to say, and but the way that fourth wall stuff, it's very Blazing Saddles, isn't that? You go to the cinema and watch the end of the film in the cinema.
Yeah,
and I quite like. I think the trouble with this one, if I was honest, it's missing some of the better characters who were in Mel Brooks films. So you've got some of the cast that's in Blazing Saddles and in Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder and people like that. It's not, and Madeline Kahn. I don't think she's in this either.
I don't think so. No, Bill Pullman in it and John Candy.
Yeah, and those, he plays that dog character, doesn't he? It's just not got the. I don't think it's got the characters enough, and there's not enough jokes in it to really pull it off. So it falls a bit flat in its face. And you got Yoga instead of Yoda, and he's Mel Brooks, and who plays that.
Yeah,
I just thought it was just
Rick Moranis in it as Dark Helmet.
Yeah, it's parts of it do make me chuckle, and it is that. And I'll go with it because it has that. It does have that legacy, but it hasn't aged well. This one hasn't aged well. It's not great. It's certainly not Mel Brooks' best. I mean, you've got to get past Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles for me to even get near that list. Let alone some of the others.
Yeah. I mean, there is. They're by far. I mean, and did Mel Brooks do the producers as well? Yeah.
I was going to say, and the producers, and some of those, we know you've got to get past all that before you get. But these are kind of throwaway comedies, and it's certainly better than that Robin Hood thing that he did. Robin Hood Men in Tights, was it?
Yeah, that was
awful.
God awful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 11th of December again, same day. It's a proper comedy day. Bigfoot and the Hendersons is also out. Again, not watched this. I've not watched this since the 80s either. I think I've seen bits of it when it's been on telly.
I saw there was a TV series that came off the back of it, which I've seen a few of. And I didn't remember anything about the film other than it had John Lithgow in it.
Yes, yeah.
That's the only thing I could remember, and I didn't really even remember other than seeing the image of the box, obviously, and the sort of when I've dug into it on the movie database, what the Bigfoot actually looked like. Because I think it became Harry. Is it Harry and the Hendersons? It became later, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what's the plot of it? What's it about?
I think they find Bigfoot, and I don't know. That's as much as I can tell you. I'm not sure if they find him and he has to go back to the trying to get him back to where they want to be, or there's some, I don't know. I can't really remember. It's so vague. I was just surprised that it won an Oscar for Best Makeup. That flabbergasted me. Rick Baker won it for the 60th Academy Awards. He won it for Best Makeup. And I also laughed out loud when I found out that the Bigfoot was played by the same guy that played the Predator.
Yeah, well, it was either him or what's his face played Star Wars, sort of Darth Vader at the time. If we need someone, we see someone massive in a suit.
Yeah, it'll either be David Prowse or the guy that played Chewbacca, or Kevin Peter Hall.
That's it. So the plot of this, according to IMDb, is the Henderson family adopt a friendly Sasquatch, but have a hard time trying to keep the legend of Bigfoot a secret. That's it.
Yeah, my sides aren't really affected that generally. There's no splitting of anything.
It's just one of those, probably along the same lines as, let's think, Short Circuit. Like we've got someone different in the family, and we need to keep it a secret type thing.
E.T.
Yeah, it's all in the back of E.T., isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Except this time it's everyone's, America's favourite mountain man, Sasquatch.
Yeah. It'd have been better if it was Predator in the Hendersons.
Comedy and shoes.
Comedy and shoes.
Put that laser away.
Stop saying anytime. I've told you, lunchtime, dinner time, tea time. Not any time, you stupid Predator idiot.
Stop laughing like Billy.
And who the hell is Billy?
When did you
meet him?
him?
Murdering again. You've been murdering in that jungle again. I told you about that. Stop murdering people. Them skulls are ghoulish. Stop bringing them to the house.
Yeah, you're not a cat. Stop dropping them at my feet.
Yeah, no, I don't want a 14th century flintlock pistol, you stupid predator. Go and eat your gruel.
Get it back into the
I'm dropping a log on you.
Get back into the attic. There'll be nothing but fish heads all week.
And they've dismantled that bloody wrist bomb you had, so sod off with that. You're not putting that on again.
Absolutely. It took me ages working out that working out that font.
Yeah, luckily for me, I'd played V, so I knew exactly how to decode that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was a past master at getting out that door. Easy.
I think I'd prefer that version, to be honest.
Yeah, Predator and the Hendersons. With Arnie as that in John Lithgow's character.
Stick around for lunch.
Knock, knock. What are you doing in there? Get out. You've been in the toilet for hours. Stop leaving your hair in the sink.
If you bleed, get a plaster.
They're under the sink, which you've blocked with your hair.
Oh dear. The almost writes itself.
It does. I mean, this stuff just exists. I think we just channel it. 11th of December. Also, same day, you could have gone and seen The Dead.
Chirpy
Christmas film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, directed by John Huston, written by son Tony, and starring his daughter Angelica.
Yeah.
I've no idea. What's this about? Do you know?
No, I don't. It was some family-based drama. What surprised me, according to Pauline Kael, the film critic, Huston directed the movie at 80, so really the title of the film should have been Nearly Dead, from a wheelchair, jumping up to look through the camera with oxygen tubes trailing from his nose to a portable generator most of the time. He had to watch the actors on a video monitor outside the set and use a microphone to speak to the crew. It'd be like being directed by Davros. Yet he went into dramatic areas that he'd never gone into before. Funny, warm family scenes that might be thought completely out of his range. Huston never before blended his actors so intuitively, so musically. I think he died not long after that as well.
What's it about?
Just about his family stuff. I don't know. I don't care. I never watched it. Never going to see that. Just thought it was funny that he basically Davros his way through it.
Gabrielle Conroy and wife Greta attend an early January dinner with friends at the home of his spinster aunts. An evening which results in an epiphany for both of them.
Davros directed it. Now, will you please sit over there?
Hug him.
Action.
Show more emotion. More emotion.
I created the script. I created the set. You must obey me. We're not obeying you, bloody
I am the director.
Huston.
You will do as I say.
Just switch him off. He won't,
Just unplug one of those oxygen tubes.
Yes, we obey no one, is what they would say.
Indeed. Finally, 26th of December, full on Christmas brown. You could have gone and seen Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe. Here
and
we are.
I did go see Masters of the Universe. Did you go see this at the cinema?
Unfortunately, yes, I did.
I did as well.
Yes, I did. Of course I did. I was a big Masters of the Universe fan. I still am in a way.
I know you are.
Not this film, though. Not this film. It's crap. It is awful, and it's because of so
Canon
many factors.
Masterpiece, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it was made at the time when Canon were imploding, weren't they? So they were, their debts. Do you know how many films Canon had made in that period? I think they made 26 films in 1986 or 87. And 32 films in 1988. That's most crazy prolific, but the films they were making were utter shite.
Yeah.
And costing them money, and they had this sort of notion of quick turnaround, quick profit, but eventually the debts caught up with them and they all went to pot. And this was one of the films, along with Superman 4, that really hammered the final nails into that coffin, let me tell you.
It's not a good film, this.
No, it's terrible. Interesting because of its weird quirks. It starts off in Eternia and then quickly goes to Earth because of some portal that the woman, the princess, not the princess, sorry, the priestess woman,
the
sorceress woman creates. So yeah, obviously, of course, they end up on Earth, and it's just obvious given the budgets for this. Why that is obviously a decision because it didn't start out that way, and I think that they were sort of showcasing this as their big Star Wars. This is as big as Star Wars. This is going to be massive. This is going to be huge. Millions of pounds worth of special effects, yada, yada, yada. And then when it came to it, it was just Dolph Lundgren running around, not very good stuff, really.
And doing the line badly.
Which is?
I have the power.
Yeah. And he doesn't know, does he? He doesn't have the power. No. He's missing all the vital components of a He-Man movie, except
everything.
Really.
He just goes, I have the power. It's awful. Awful.
Oh,
I remember laughing. I remember laughing out loud at the cinema at that bit.
I mean, I like Frank Langella's portrayal of Skeletor, such as his kind of rubber remasked Skeletor, and it's cheap Skeletor. It's no visual effects. They just made a mask, but he really does get into his parts. But he does that, Frank Langella.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in that ninth gate, and as much as that film is a really long piece of shite, he's actually gets really into that role.
He was in that he's in that really weird Dracula as well.
Yeah, and he gets into that
70s Dracula.
Yeah, fair play to the man. He gets into his roles and he he's digging it. It's also got Courtney Cox in this as well.
I know, yeah.
It's one of those, an earlier film for her. Directed by Gary Goddard. It's the only film he ever made.
I think that's a pseudonym.
Yes, maybe. It was directed by
it's an Alan
Orko.
Smith. Maybe it's an Alan Smithy.
Well, he's certainly not got any other credits to any other films that I can see in there in Internet Movie Database. So it's set on Earth. It doesn't quite work, does it? It really made me think about why modern remakes, reboots of these hadn't happened. I mean, the commercial failures of Master of the Universe with Superman 4 and Life Force, which really surprised me that Life Force was a massive bomb at the box office, but
really?
It was. Yeah, huge, massive bomb, yeah.
I know, but why did that surprise you?
I quite like Life Force. I mean, the effects are crap, but it's got lots of really good boobs in that. I mean, come on, be fair. Space vampires, so good.
Yeah.
The opening sequence and the music of Life Force is really good. Life Force is really good. Anyway, so obviously Canon went tits up and it was all going wrong, and this is just another victim of all of that. Did you know that they were going to they planned a sequel to this? It's even mentioned at the end of the film in the end credits.
Yeah, I know, because Skeletor picks something up, doesn't he, and laughs. It's the last shot,
he survives the fall in the film, which he's obviously lobbed off a thing, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it says the sequel is going to be called Master of the Universe 2 Cyborg.
That's weird.
Odd, but apparently it was going to feature Skeletor, of course, but also Trapjaw and She-Ra. Thank God it never happened.
No, thank God.
Bloody awful. But it got me thinking, and it was just a quick final part, I suppose, really. If there were to be modern 80s cartoon remakes with modern special effects and modern, not just CG actors, but real actors, who would you have now play He-Man and Skeletor in some of those roles? Who would your choices be?
He-Man, John Cena, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, Channing Tatum's not a bad crack, actually. Yeah, go for that.
Maybe, because I think he's big.
Yeah, you need a bodybuilder type, don't you? So a bodybuilding dude.
Not someone obvious. Not anyone from Fast and the Furious. So not The Rock. Not anyone like that.
The Rock could do it, I suppose, but he'd look silly in a wig, I think.
I think in a blonde wig, he's going to look odd.
Please, someone make that happen. But that kind of build you'd need, wouldn't you? That kind of, because he's a massive bodybuilding dude.
So John Cena, I think, would be all right.
But I thought if we're looking at 80s cartoons generally, I'd definitely pitch The Rock, Dwayne Johnson as Panthro. Be a good contender for Panthro.
Yeah, I suppose.
Or there's the guy that's there's another actor I can't think who he is. I was going to say Carl Weathers, but he's a bit old now.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Idris Elba would be a good Panthro.
Yeah, he would be. I think
it would be Skeletor.
I mean, it's a bit like Thor, but you could probably get Chris Hemsworth as Lion-O.
Yes, that's actually a really good call. But who would be Mumra and who would be Skeletor? Or would they just be CG, maybe? CG people?
I don't know. You'd want them not to be. You want them up against sort of humans. I don't know. Mumra, I don't know.
I think it'd have to be CG for that, I think.
Maybe.
Skeletor's got a skeleton head. And I know there's some thin actors in Hollywood, but goodness me, that would be, only Gary shaves
we've already had someone who played with a skeleton head. You get Nick Cage.
Oh, God, that film's so shit, isn't it?
Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I want to see, I'm quite interested to see the new one, though. The Unbearable Lightness of Massive Talent, whatever it is, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
I have seen that available on the internet.
That's what I mean. It's his recent stuff. I think he could play quite a good unhinged Mumra.
Yes, he might do a good Mumra, somebody like that. Get into the evil side, yeah. Yeah, could do. Yeah, I just wondered what you thought of that.
Who would you have play She-Ra, though?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I don't know, actually. I never really liked She-Ra as a character.
No.
I don't know. I mean, Chitara, that's even more difficult, really. I'd have to think about that. You need someone,
Well, you had Chitara in that most recent Wonder Woman film.
Yes, actually,
Wonder Woman 84, whatever it was, which was awful film.
Yeah, I say you could. Yeah, she might make a good.
So you had What's-Her-Face's
Evil Lynn or someone or one of them.
I can't remember the character's name, but it was a cheetah. What it turned into a cat.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the actress, but yes.
No, she was in the Ghostbusters film, wasn't she? It's Kristen.
Yes.
Is it Kristen Wiig?
Yes, something like that. Yeah, she's also in. Yeah, yes, she might be quite good.
Yeah,
I'd have to sit and think about that a bit.
Well, if you've got any thoughts on that, listener, let us know. If you want to
tuned out by now,
if you haven't tuned out by now, and you got some thoughts on who you would like to see in 80s cartoon revivals and who you think would play them, let us know.
Yeah,
there we go.
Let us know tweet it to us.
Indeed, tweet us, email us, whatever. Moan at us, Facebook, wherever. That's it. That's the film and TV. What did we look at? We had 321 was cancelled, brought back for 2 more shows and cancelled again. Frank Boff.
Just to make sure.
Frank Boff was allegedly off doing things. Julie Andrews we had Nazis, Chilled Monkey Brains and Cancer on Christmas Day on BBC One. And Hilda Ogden left Coronation Street. Channel 4 did whatever. Whistle Test came back for a bit. Front Caps were gone. EastEnders had a telly. We had Spaceballs, Bigfoot and the Hendersons, The Dead. And finally, the year was rounded off with Masters of the Universe at the cinema. That's what you could have gone seen over that Christmas break. That's it. That's your last TV and film for 1987. We've got 6 more games to do, and then we're done. We are done for this year. Thank the Lord, we're done. So give us a bit of time. We'll have a quick break. We'll be back after that, and we'll get into those games. So see you in a moment.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Crash landing on a green planet full of vector graphics, can Sarah find a way to escape for real? Or is she stranded on a planet full of sun, sea, and chippy tea forever? Imagine finding yourself in a cinematic karate game, having to rescue a princess, or remain stuck under the run-stop key forever. What about finding yourself on a space freighter full of robots? Could you clear the decks? If you were transported back to a Wild West town, having to round up outlaws, could you survive until sunset? What if you were a wizard with a cat who must colour worlds? Could you beat the game, or would a virtual guitar solo announce your demise? Sarah might just be another visitor, but she doesn't want to stay a while, never mind forever. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, discover if there's a way out in Escape from the Commodore 64. Visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out more.
And as promised, we are back. 6 more games. Let's do this. Once more into the breach. Friends, once more. And Graham, let's start that breach with Maniac Mansion. Tell us about it.
So Maniac Mansion from Lucasfilm Games, of course, coded by the legend of Ron Gilbert. Well, not by the legend of Ron Gilbert, by actual Ron Gilbert. His legend lives on after that.
The legend of Ron Gilbert made this.
So Ron Gilbert coded it. David Fox also, and Carl May, graphics and art and animation. Gary Winnick. Created and designed, of course, by Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick. The music here is by Chris Grigg and David Lawrence. There's a lot of other credits as well, things like playtesters and things like that. We'll make them available to you if you want to go and dig them out, but that's the mainstay of it all. So this is a real whopper, isn't it? This is a bit of a C64 whopper, and it's a very, very, very important game in a number of different ways. So let's just dive into a little bit of the story, as such as it is. So a meteor has smashed into the grounds of the Maniac Mansion and seems to be having a peculiar effect on the inhabitants. Dr. Fred, a retired doctor turned mad scientist, decided to take over the world one teenager at a time. He plans to engage in horrible experiments and so enacts his diabolical plan by first kidnapping Sandy, the teenage girlfriend of Dave, with the express intent of sucking out her brains and thus one by one taking over the world. Dave isn't about to let anyone suck his girlfriend's brains out, and so, with the able assistance of 2 friends, decides to sneak into the Maniac Mansion at night, navigate the rooms, objects, puzzles, inhabitants, and challenges, sabotage any crazy evil scientist machinery, escape, and rescue Sandy before she's left brainless. And then obviously everybody gets out and gets to safety. That's the plan. To enable you to choose 2 friends, you can choose from a selection. So you've got a couple of friends you can go with. Each one of those has their own strengths, skills, and weaknesses. And cleverly, this also changes not only how you play and complete the game, it also changes the ending of the game because there are multiple endings to this. So you can choose from Bernard, who is a perfectly schooled electronics and repairing things, kind of a nerdy looking kid with sort of round glasses, nerdy look. Wendy is a young author who would give everything to make it big. Jeff is actually a beach boy. He only thinks of surfing. Michael is a passionate photographer. Razor is a singer in her own punk band. Razor and the Scummities. I think it is. And Sid is a talented musician who wants to get to the top of the music branch. Those are the 6 people you can choose from. You can choose 2. You can't change who you are, so you are always Dave. So once you picture 2, the game begins with a sort of nice little intro sort of to the game. You see the meteor crash land and all the lights go on in the house, and then so on and so forth. So let's talk about how you play this and how you engage in the adventure. Right at the top of the screen is what they call the message line. This is where spoken words by the characters will appear, as well as other messages in the game. Below that is the biggest area, which is the animation window, where using the joystick you control the crosshairs to target the attention and direction of the character you control. And you point that to the places objects, which are the nouns in this. And it's important that we remember that. So places and objects are the nouns and items. So you can move the player around the environment, search for things, and do all of that. So the camera view here is sort of the camera's eye, and it will scroll in certain locations depending on the location and the sort of how you're moving across it. So just below the animation window is the sentence line, where you construct sentences that tell the characters what to do. In the context of the game, there are verbs, which all exist below in the section. We'll talk about them in a minute, and nouns, which all appear as objects and things to click on in the animation window. So you can pile sentences from those, such as unlock door with key, by connecting the words and moving your pointer around to sort of click on the object, click on the thing you want to do. So the bottom of this screen is where you have a collection of verbs through which you can compile all the interactions of the game, hence the point and click part. The verbs do not change throughout the game, so they are always the same list of verbs. So walk to, what is, pick up, turn on, those kind of things. So this list is always view and it's always consistent. Just below that is your inventory area where each character's items have been collected and shown. There are no limits to what each character can pick up, and each character's name is added to the object they pick up, so you know who has what at any specific time. Very important to remember that detail.
Mm-hmm.
You can switch between the 3 characters that you've selected by pressing F1, F3, and F5 on the keyboard, or you can actually choose the new kid option on the verbs. And you can save your progress in the game with a shift click of F1. So you can actually save where you're up to, and bear in mind, you will need to do that. You do need a blank disc in there to do that, however, obviously. During the game, you also get cut scenes that will show you more of the story, developments elsewhere, puzzle hints, and other items. These actually interrupt your play during the game, but you will always return to where you were and who you were after that. And you can skip them. It's not recommended that you do because more often than not, they'll give you some key information or a view of something that you might need to know. So you can press F7 to bypass that if you want to. The game then sees you and your 2 friends working your way through the mansion, encountering objects and puzzles that you must solve in order to gradually find Sandy and rescue her. Some of the puzzles require timing here and there. Some require certain objects and skills. Some routes can lead to dead ends. Indeed, sometimes you will even do things that will thwart your own progress, and you probably won't know that you've done it until a bit later. You need to play through as logically as you can, all the while noticing as much as possible. In any given room, you can search using the what is verb command and see what is what, which normally allows you to fully explore everything and with some trial and error, work your way through the game. It's designed to be fun and lighthearted. The puzzles are sometimes obtuse and they are tough. There's no doubt about that sometimes. But other times they are quite rewarding, and when you get it, it's quite a nice feeling. But there is lots of flexibility in how you play this game, which I think is really clever and very rewarding, but a nightmare for the people that designed it, as pointed out by Ron Gilbert. The whole game is designed with a certain C64 high-res look, so it's 320 by 200 pixels here, and it has a really nice, interesting aesthetic, but there are a lot of graphics in it. Ron Gilbert actually cleverly created his own way of reducing background graphics into characters and compiling these to allow a good level of cartoon-like background detail and object interaction. So there is a lot of graphic information in this game, and it belies the kind of look of it because it does look a bit blocky and a bit basic, but there's a lot in there. So the scrolling is a bit on the juddery side here because it feels more like the camera is kind of following you and you just kind of shuffle along a bit. Again, you sort of have to just go with the way that plays out. The idea of that scrolling in these kind of adventure games, bearing in mind that this is kind of a legacy extension of text adventures, then go to graphic adventures, then go to sort of basic, sort of more graphics with text input adventures. And the whole point of them advancing to this kind of verbs and nouns, click and point and click idea is that they wanted to do away with the text input parsers and create a more interactive experience for the player. So you didn't have to sit there typing pick up object pick up, and do things repeatedly when the computer just go, I don't know what you mean, or there is nothing there. And those frustrating points that Ron Gilbert noticed when he played another couple of games, I think King's Quest was one of them, where he repeatedly saw that happen all the time. He wanted to find a way of avoiding that. So even though the scrolling is not necessarily great, it's not going to distract you from the adventure game here, and the graphics are cartoon style, and it does sort of get away with it. The main sprites in the game are tall and I think quite well created. They've got a good character and readability factor to them. So they've got little bits of expression and little bits of interest about them. They don't just look like blocks. They are sort of defined sort of character-looking people. They reminded me a little bit of Epics style people, but they've got that kind of look to them. And they do look like proper characters, and they do have proper character traits. So some things that some of the characters can do in the game, other characters cannot do. So the musicians, there's specific routes and specific things you can do with the musician characters and things that will happen in the game that will not happen if you don't choose those characters. It's quite clever like that. So I found that quite interesting. The movement can be a bit slow at times, and the pace is a little bit odd. And sometimes you'll enter rooms, and there's a couple of little quirky sort of, I wouldn't say they were bugs, but there's quirks. Sometimes you'll enter a room, and if you see one of the characters in the game, you might meet the mad nurse, or you might meet one of the other characters. If they catch you in the game, so the first time you'll encounter one is most likely be in the kitchen. When you go in the kitchen and you see there's a nurse sort of raiding the fridge, and if she'll see you and run after you, if she catches you, she places you in the dungeon, and that's that character technically almost out of the game for quite a while before you finally either get the key or figure out how to get out of there. But if you actually just leg it as soon as you see her and get to the door and get out, if you go straight back into the room you just came out of, they disappear. The character's gone. It's kind of a bit of a quirk, but it's a way of getting around that. Anyway, so they do look like characters. They are interesting. There's not loads of characters in the game, but it is quite interesting when you encounter them. There's even 2 tentacles, which of course later come back in Day of the Tentacle, which is, I think, the sequel to this. So the controlling of the action does take a little bit of getting used to, because there's a reason why it works better on the Amiga point and click when you've got a mouse. I mean, that's a fact. There's no way around that. The limitation here is you've got a joystick and you're kind of controlling a crosshairs with it. And we said before, it's not the greatest way to do anything. It does just about get away with it here. So it does just about work. So sometimes there's a bit of a panic about trying to click on the right verb and click on it. And there are some things it helps you with. So when you click walk to and then you click on the follow-up verbs and the follow-up nouns, it does compile those in have the last one accessible. So you can just press your button on certain objects and double press it with the verb intact, and it will sort of follow an action. So pick up key, use key, that kind of thing. So it does have that, and it does help you out a little bit. But there's no denying that the control takes a little bit of getting used to, in the sense that you've got a crosshair and you kind of got to, you can't just move the joystick to the left and expect to do anything to happen. You actually have to click the button to walk to, and then it will move. And it's just, once you get around that and get past that, you're going to be fine. So once you've got grips to navigating it with the crosshairs, moving around the joystick and creating the required actions from the verbs and nouns, you very quickly get to grips with how the game functions, and then you can focus on the game itself and the puzzles. The game features a series of large, complex puzzles made up from a bunch of smaller puzzles, which some of which do need to be completed in a specific order. So some of them do, some of them don't. There's several ways to complete some puzzles. In fact, quite a few separate with different ways, and some of the objects are complete, not MacGuffins, and they're just there for just to throw you off the scent. So there's quite a lot of that in this. So you might be carrying an object around for ages and it has no purpose whatsoever, which is quite funny in its own way. So depending on the characters who you choose, and depending on how you play and what you do in certain situations, will very much depend on how you progress through the game, and also the sort of general movement. So it all really does depend on your choices and how you play this game and who you choose, which I think is amazing for a game of this type at this time. So I really, I'm effusive about Maniac Mansion because I think it's such a brilliantly designed and important game. It's the first official SCUM engine game. SCUM engine stands for the Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion. So this is the first of the SCUM games. That engine became the engine that drove almost all the other games that came after, including things like Monkey Island and all the others. This was the first game that utilized that programming system to be able to define the engine that runs the game and all the interactions. And that's very important because that made this ultimately super portable. So this was then able to be ported. There's even a VMware version of this and a virtual version now. So this can exist on anything. But it's the first game that utilizes the SCUM engine. Obviously, that's the defining engine that runs all the interactions and all the cutscenes and goes on to power many, many more games. In fact, the phrase cutscene apparently originated from this game because of those cutscenes that are in the game. So this game was apparently, according to Ron Gilbert in an interview, was the first game to use the phrase cutscenes for a game. So those are cutscenes. So they apparently originated with this, and the context of how it displays other scenes and the game flow, and that idea that those scenes sort of occurring elsewhere in the game at the same time and all of that is quite unique to this. It's really the true beginning of point and click, because Murder on the Mississippi has the look of this, but it doesn't have the point and click, because that is more of a choose your sort of response type idea. And Labyrinth sort of has that kind of rolling sort of choice thing, but it's not the verb choice and noun choice that you have here. There is lineage from those, I think, to this somehow, but certainly this is the first proper point and click game as by that definition, I think, which of course leads to many other amazing games, including Day of the Tentacle, obviously the Monkey Island series, Zack McCracken, which no doubt we'll cover later when that comes out, which is another mind-blowingly brilliant game. Indiana Jones, there's loads and loads of them. Obviously, the guy behind the code here, who actually programmed this game himself as well, it was Ron Gilbert. Now, he has obviously a long and illustrious career in video games, still to this day making games and all sorts of, including point-and-click games, and I think there's even a follow-up now to Monkey Island on the cards. And this game has been ported to pretty much everything over time. But this, as he describes it, this is his personal favourite of all of his games. It's the one he was most passionate and the one he put most hours. He spent a year of his life getting all of the design and all of the code and everything working on this, and really pushed the way to be able to get it working in the way they did, so that it existed on two sides of one disc. And it is really kind of the beginning of I think the first two versions of the C64 and logically the Apple II, which is kind of almost the both 6502. So you can see why it might have gone that way. This game started my lifetime love of point and click adventures. I absolutely love them, and I recommend strongly, if you like this kind of thing, purchasing the Point and Click Adventure book, which is the sort of a showcase book from Bitmap, I think. It's an amazing book, beautiful images in there. And at one stage or other, I think I've played all of them. I don't think there's many point and click games I've not played, or at least pretty much all of them across all the different formats. Two of my favourite C64 games of all time are point and click games, of which this is one. I think the graphics here are bold and colourful and fairly simple, all said and done, understandable by everybody. The complexity, the story isn't over complex and over difficult. The puzzles are challenging. The graphics here are in the backgrounds are good, and if all said and done, there's a lot to be said about keeping things simple even at this level, even though what they're doing actually is very complicated. The sounds are okay, maybe on the weaker side actually for this, but there's a lot of stuff in the game, so the sounds have sort of more perfunctory sound effects, and there is an opening theme which is kind of famous at Maniac Mansion music, but there's more interstitial sort of sound effects in the game itself. The characters are all quite interesting with great dynamism between them, and the puzzles are challenging and sometimes not obvious. It's certainly one for disk drive owners. Obviously, I don't think it ever came out on tape. I don't believe it did, but it could have. But the whole game was less than 320k in total. So it was 160k per disc side. So they managed to cram this whole game, all the graphics and everything else and all that logic, all the endings, all the multiple endings. I've forget how many there are, into 320k, which is kind of staggering, really. And the packaging for this game was really cool when it came out. It had really good instructions, loads of bump, loads of clues in the instructions all over the place, hidden clues and everything. So it's quite a fun game. And staggeringly, this did not get a gold medal in Zap. I think even now it irks me that this got 93%. And I sort of get it, because there is weaker parts of the sound, but some of their criticisms, they say the last ability says when the adventure is solved, return to the mansion with a new gang. But there's multiple endings in this game, and those endings change depending on, in some instances, what room you go in, what object you pick up can change the ending of the game. So you might never see the same ending with the same characters twice, because you might do it differently, and I think that's incredible. They described the sound as a bit nonplussed, and I suppose they might be right about that. And they criticised the large cartoon graphics, but they do say that they're cartoon style and nicely drawn backdrops, and I suppose they are maybe a little bit too on the basic side with the limitations of what they are. I don't know. Anyway, I took a moment to look across the scores, and I don't think they're really fair. I don't think they make much sense. It is a sizzler, and that's no bad thing, and 93% is a good score for anything, but I sometimes wonder, and it is up against something like Nebulus, which is genuinely quite incredible for a game, but a very different kind of game. So maybe this is, 93%. I would have given it gold medal myself, but okay, maybe I'm a bit biased because I love it. But admittedly, even Ron Gilbert in his 2012 Maniac Mansion post-mortem video, which I'd recommend everyone watch, by the way, because it's brilliant, which is on YouTube, and in a sort of it was during a presentation he was giving at some German event that he was at. He states that while Maniac Mansion is a deeply personal game for him and one of his personal favourites, it is flawed. There's lots of loose ends and problems that leave you unable to finish the game. There's loads of logic traps here and there, and that can leave you in difficulty. It isn't perfect, and that's by his own admission, but for me, this is one of the most incredible games on the C64. It's a true logic and playable advance of the text graphic adventure series, which generally tune me out. So this was a really good in for me to be able to play those kind of games. And it's a step into a very different level of game design. This is sort of next generation game design, and that proof because this engine is still the engine they use to make these games. It's still the Scum engine behind all of them. So I think this is next generation before the platform, I think. And its testament to that is that the games on the modern platform still kind of feel and kind of play the same way. I think it stands now as one of the single greatest games ever made. Certainly on the C64, easily one of the best. And I think the great thing is here is that there's better to come. Not necessarily better than this game, because they all play really well, but this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Robbed of a gold medal, but I'll live with that. Decent price for a big adventure with multiple endings as well. I think it's brilliant. I can't honestly sing its praises, and I will always play it, because I remember the very first day I played it, and it was like when I was playing it for this podcast, it felt exactly the same. I love it. I think it's ace. What about you?
I find these games pretty boring. I can appreciate them, though. It's the first of the proper Scum type games, obviously on the C64, melding adventure games with arcade games, and it does it way more successfully than Labyrinth did. I like the fact there's a touch of Lovecraft, Colour Out of Space, and then the 50s sci-fi horror in the story of meteors crashing down in rural America and causing otherwise normal people to go a bit insane around the gills. So there's a nice touch of Lovecraft in there. It's beautifully presented, don't get me wrong, and it plays very well. It's got a simple to navigate interface. Visuals are a step up from what we had in Labyrinth, and the actual world itself, because I think the world itself is better. So it would just be in the house. So it allows it to be more small and more detailed in scope than the Labyrinth, which I thought was a lot of grey walls. The cast of characters is also an improvement, and having to choose who to do the adventure with, it adds more variety and scope of gameplay. And as you've rightly pointed out, is it possible to complete the game no matter who you pick?
No, some combinations are not capable of completing the game.
See, that's not great.
No, like you said, it's flawed.
Yeah, so if you've got no clue at the beginning, this is what we kind of said about Monty on the Run. Like, you don't know which objects to take in. So if you just pick two characters and you have no idea, if you've got multiple endings, it's...
Oh, yeah, he knew he hadn't got it quite right, and his argument there was that he just bit off a bit more than he could chew.
Yeah, I get it.
Remember, you've got two people making this game.
No, I know. I'm not doubting that. I just think that's a big thing for me, which is saying you could, from the moment of the start, you are not going to complete this game. And you might not realize why. Because of the multiple things that can go wrong through a playthrough, you may never realize it was because you made the bad choice at the beginning.
Absolutely.
I think that is quite a striking mark against it.
It's an acknowledged fact that there are flaws with this.
No, absolutely. Down the line, they'll fix them. But there's no. I mean, I'm not doubting the technical chops here. Don't get me wrong. What they've done is incredible, and the craft and the love of the genre. And you can tell that what they wanted to produce is what they produced. And I think they probably bit off a little bit more than they could chew. And there's some issues around the edges and things like that. So I mean, I don't know. Had I played this back then, I mean, I couldn't. I didn't have a disk drive, and it never hit tape, and it never would. So I bet I would have loved this. Maybe I might have liked this genre more than I would. But as it was, I never got really to play it, and I didn't really play point and clicks until I had an Amiga, and that was well later. And so maybe that's got part and parcel of this. I don't know. Having never played it, I can appreciate it for where it stands in gaming history. Right, I get it. I understand its importance. I know why it's revered. I know what it led to, but I just know these games they're just not for me. I've just never been a huge fan of point and click adventures, whether that is things like Monkey Island. I'm not a big Monkey Island fan. I know that's kind of
wash your mouth out.
I know I'm just not. Simon the Sorcerer, Grim Fandango, Broken Sword, any of those, not the legion of others. And I had a look at the LucasArts games, the list of LucasArts games. So they started off with Ballblazer, Rescue and Fractalis, Eidolon, Cronus Rift, and this kind of really weird experimental doing these kind of technically interesting things. And the whole thing from, Lucas was don't use licenses, don't. And Maniac Mansion is part of that, obviously. But here, it's weird. You look at their history from this point on, Lucasfilm, LucasArts primarily become a point-and-click World War II sort of simulator developer. That's all that's built to become. It's kind of strange, really, considering those first few games. And I actually, from my point of view, I find that quite I prefer those first four. I love the Eidolon as much as I know I do. And so I always found that those were more interesting in a sense of what they were doing. I get that this is people's type of game, your type of game, and there's not many I like. I mean, I was trying to think if there's ones I do actually like. I mean, there's not many. There's the first Walking Dead by Telltale that I really like. I thought that was brilliant. I mean, everyone does, so that's what it is. And I think I completed the first Broken Sword game back on the PlayStation. But there you go. I love the Phoenix Wright games, but the Phoenix Wright games, I saw a list of the Phoenix Wright games were in it. I never thought of them as point and click, but I guess kind of they are a little bit, but they are what they are. Just there's something that the genre just doesn't gel with me, and that's just me. So I'm not going to knock the game. The graphics, I think the graphics are really nice in it. I think there's no problem with that. I think the replayability is there, as you rightly pointed out. There's multiple endings. There's loads of different ways to go through it. I think screwing yourself from the very beginning is bad, no matter how we want to sort of argue around that. I think that's a bad thing. However, there's enough here. Would I give it a gold medal? I wouldn't, but that's just me. I can see there's an argument for it, but I think that's retrospectively looking at it and where it went, because you just got a game here at this point in time. You don't know what's coming next and what this will lead to. It's like what we said about Pirates. It's maybe the Zapped didn't quite understand what they were kind of looking at and where this was going to go and how influential this was going to be. I don't know. I find because I wanted to play this without looking at a guide, because it's like if I'm just going to follow a guide, then it's like, well, what's the point in me playing it? You're just going through a series of steps, and that's just dull. And I got lost quite quickly, wandering around, picking stuff up. I don't know. And I wanted to play it. I wanted to give it a really good go, and I gave it a few goes, and I just found the same things happen over. I tried different people, did different stuff. I like the technical side of it. I like the cutscenes. There's some quite funny dialogue and bits and bobs and things like that, and the characters are good, and everything around it is all right. Just this type of game is just not for me, and I'm happy with that. I'm not bothered, but I'll absolutely 100% back you to the hilt that it should have. Maybe it should have scored higher. I don't know. There you go. That's me.
I don't know that it should score higher. I just think it is. I mean, yeah, it's easy to look back and go, well, this led to, so therefore it should have got better. That's not my point. My point is that this was a great game. Maybe it just is in the wrong section in Zapped. I don't know if does it really live in the adventure section? Is it that? Is it? I don't know.
It's a crossover, isn't it? It is. It's an arcade adventure in and of itself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really like Maniac Mansion. I actually prefer Zack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders, because that's a much better story.
It'll be interesting to play that one, because again, it's not something I've played much of because I didn't have a disc drive, so I've never really gone back to these because it's not a genre I particularly like. So looking at Zack McCracken, when maybe they've ironed out some of the kinks and the bugs and the hiccups and the things, and it's maybe a better game. I don't know. I've heard good things about Zack McCracken. I'd heard good things about this, and it's a transitional period. It's a transitional thing, isn't it? It's the evolution. It's the start of something. They're not going to get it perfect from out the bat.
It's that, and I think it's the inclusion of some ideas. I think make it very interesting. The idea of having multiple characters to choose from, the idea of cutscenes is quite interesting in a game like this, and that those are happening sort of asynchronously with you. So while you're doing stuff, this is happening elsewhere, and I really like that. It's quite refreshing that a game does that.
I mean, we've seen similar things in. I mean, it's not the same, but I suppose kind of in Karateka, where that has
that's that kind of sort of quality to it. While you're running, you sort of see the sort of mini scenes of it, and you see those.
Into the cell
similar, but there's no dialogue. There's no.
That's another person who would sort of approach games from a more filmic, cinematic viewpoint. Jordan Mechner with Prince of Persia and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they're definitely influenced by the B movies and things they've seen. I mean, there's no doubt about that with this. You know, he said in his interview that the meteor striking in the ground is actually based on that. There's a film with Stephen King in it where he plays like a farmer and a meteor lands in his garden and
that's Creepshow, isn't it?
Over. Yeah, that part of Creepshow. So it's part of that. So there's a little bit of that in there, and you can sort of see the little hints and tips of things. The house looks a bit like the house out of Psycho on the hill, and but I quite like that about it.
Well, I mean, the story of the Lovecraft story, Colour Out of Space, is a meteorite that they can't describe, lands in the backyard of this farm, and then just basically destroys. And the story
strange
told,
stuff happens.
Yeah, it destroys the family, warps everything, causes the animals to go. You know. But and that's a meteor. It's a meteor altering the things around it. So yeah, I get it. I just know that. I always know you've loved these games. It's something I know. I know you love them. They just never done. And I don't know whether it's because I didn't get into them back then.
Well, I think that's it. I think you needed to have a disc drive. And this is a proper disc game. It can only exist on disc because it's 220k. It's not going to be, it's not something you can load in tape. And the way the game plays out, because certain things only happen in certain ways because of certain things that you do. So if you're the musician and and also it's one thing that is, I did forget to mention, is if you're playing two characters and one of the characters, like if, for example, one of the characters picks up the developer fluid and breaks it, and one of your other characters is the photographer, you can then complete their game in that way, because you have to try and think of a different way of doing it because you've broken the developer fluid, which the photographer is the only one who knows how to use it anyway. And it's just it's a little break. But there's a really good logic map for this, which is in one of the documents, which we'll put in the show notes, but there's a whole series of stuff I found around the documents and stuff like that. And when you see the logic map, I mean, they did it on layers of like acetate sheet for each character, so where they interacted and then overlaid them, and it's just mind-boggling. And you can see why when he said he bit off more than he could chew, it's clear. Yeah,
I like I said, I get it. I get all of that, but you can't like everything. Too much.
For each person that likes a point-and-click game, there's somebody that likes to shoot at dragons in a first-person way. But no, that's the beauty of the games that we play, is that there's something for somebody there.
There is.
And my complaint isn't that Zapped didn't figure out that the future was going to be full of point-and-click games for Lucasfilm. My complaint with the Zapped review is that they focus on the things that are not the things that so that their hookability and lastability scores seem at odds with each other, and a game that has multiple endings and multiple choices, which is something that is clear from the start. And I just find that odd because there's other games that have scored higher for lastability that have had less game to them. I just find that a little bit odd, but you know, they play what they grade them and score them in the way that they do, and it still got rave reviews.
Yeah, it did.
And is that the classic Zapped tradition? The reviewer panels are all full of effusive praise, and then the scores come out, and the scores are a little bit whitewashy.
I don't think you could put 93% as whitewashy. There's only 7% not perfect.
No, but 80 for graphics.
I think that's about right.
86% for lastability. But I suppose it belies the way they're created, I suppose. And but anyway, never mind.
It's still good. I mean, it's just what it is, isn't it? Maniac Mansion, there we go. I think that might be our longest review. There we go.
Nowhere near. We're a 45-minute review of bloody Eidolon.
No, we didn't.
We bloody did.
I'll have to go back and listen. Oh, anyway, there we go. It's Maniac Mansion. Let's move on. To a game that feels like it took just as long to play.
Oh, God, yeah, this.
This is the next one up. So this is EOS, Earth Orbit Stations, from Electronic Arts and the mind of Carl Buiter, Buiter, B-U-I-T-E-R. How do you pronounce that?
B-U-I, Buiter, I guess.
Buiter comes the Space Station Builder, or EOS, Earth Orbit Stations, to you and I. The year, Graham, is 1996. And you have been appointed Space Director. It sounds pretty cool, as job titles go.
Yay.
Yeah, I'd love that. Your job is to build space stations and use them to make money, search out extraterrestrial life, or carry out rescue operations. Now, that's what this is. So you're building space stations, essentially, to do stuff. So the game opens with a flashing space shuttle. Really weird. Cycling through the colours that the C64 can offer. So, it's just a space shuttle with loads of colours. And then it takes an age to load. If you're going to play this, settle in. I think you messaged me, didn't you? Said get a tent and a sleeping bag. It's not far off the truth. Even on warp mode on the emulator, it took ages. Anyway, once this loads up, you get to choose which mode you wish to play through. You can go through, you've got multiple modes. There are Research, Dry Dock, Shuttle, Mars Rescue, Lunar Base, Space Colony, and Search for Life. I chose Research. It seemed the first option, and hopefully the game would ease me in. Nope. Nope. No. I got a message from a CEO telling me to design a station and make some money, and I was off in the slowest way possible, because this takes an age again to load and do anything. you're asked to select a player. So you get this screen and you've got select a player on the right-hand side, whether it will be, and then it says whether you'll be player controlled or computer. And you can have up to 4 playing, but I don't know what the computer does. I tried put some to the computer, but they didn't seem to be doing much. Once you are playing and the disk loading is done, which again takes an age, you've got some options open to you. So the screen is split. On the right, you've got these options. It's like a sort of a modern day, I guess, a piece of sort of like Word or something like that, because you've got like drop downs on the top across the top, and then on the right you've got some other options as well. So you can go this, and this is controlled by this cursor, which you can move around the place. So on the right, you've got some options open to you. You've got stations, commerce, research, and probes. So if you pick stations, this allows you to build some space stations using certain modules that are available to you. So what happens is you get this grid appears, and then you get this list of types of modules you can get. I'm not going to list them all here. You've got things like command modules, life support, galleys, power, logistics. There's two pages of them, lots of lists of these. Each costs money to put in. You start off with 100 something or other. I don't know what it is. $100, $100,000, 100 million. I don't know. And each one costs money to put in. And you've got this grid, and you can build this sort of space station in this grid on the sort of takes up the main part of the screen. You move them around, and all these parts join together with these little sort of nodule-y bits. So you've got to build this space station. I'm not quite sure what for. I don't know. I don't know what kind of happened. Because you've only got a certain amount of budgets. You can't be too crazy. You've got to save some money. The next menu is commerce, and this gives me loads of financial data, research. Financial data I can make no head or tail of. I never seem to change, no matter how long I played this for. I don't know whether I hadn't actually launched something. Maybe I was doing research, so it was never going to do it. But the director said, build this and make some money. So I was expecting things to happen. Then there's also research, which gives some options to carry out research into various things like chemicals or weather or communications, things you can do in the space station, I guess, up in space. Finally, you can launch probes to the moon and beyond. There's these 2 other places you can launch to. But again, this costs money, and I'd run out of money at this point. I built my space station too big, so I couldn't launch anything. I couldn't launch a probe. I was like, and that's it, really. The presentation's really dry. I didn't really get very far into this because it's really dry and really boring. It's got just black text and a white background. When it boots up, it's got a really... I didn't know, was it supposed to be this bad? This terrible version of the Blue Danube when it boots up. Was it supposed to sound that bad? Do you know?
It wasn't very good, was it?
I didn't know whether it was supposed to be like some version that we'd sent out to space on something.
No, it's just deliberately crap.
It's just deliberately crap. All right. The cursor, which controls selecting the options, well, it can wander. I thought at first it was just flicking down between them until I continued moving, and then it just moved off on its own. So you have this cursor, which is just a cursor, which just wander all over the screen. It's just odd. Don't flick from option to option unless you're moving from option to option. Then it just moves off. You can move to the left, and it's just moving around the screen on its own. You're just controlling a cursor, moving about. It's odd, and it should flick from option to option. You can also save and load your game should you wish to. And if you've got these 3 options across the top, but it's all just very weird. It's all very boring. If this all sounds incredibly vague, that's because it is. Because this game that I found, I tried a couple of others, but it's got no easy way in. You're presented with options and things to choose from with no real idea of what they mean or will do. It seems to be quite in depth, and I'm going to guess you may need the manual. I went and searched and hunted high and low for the manual, but I couldn't find one, so I was kind of winging this a bit. So maybe it's me, and maybe you really need the manual for this, but it's really dull. You're going to, without it, you just get lost in sub-menus and options and making choices with no real way of knowing what they actually do. I don't know. It's hard for me to really say if this is any good. Zapped gave it 40%, and that it was slow, boring, and prone to crashing. And when it came down to it, not as in-depth as it makes you think it is. That was their viewpoint. And they had the instructions, so I'm going to err on the side of caution to say that this is not a particularly very good game. What I can say for sure is that this game is just not for me. It's dry, dull, very unrewarding, and even I thought building space stations and launching them and doing stuff like that sounds quite cool, but mundane and dull. They've managed to make that into the most boring thing. However, if this sounds like your cup of tea, then check it out. But be prepared to set time aside, because you're going to need it to handle the loading on this. Even at warp speed, it's dreadful. I didn't get anything out of this. It was too esoteric and too boring and too just unfriendly to play. What about you? Did you enjoy Earth orbit stations?
So slow. So painfully slow.
So slow.
Even with warp. Goodness me, it was like 15 minutes, I think, I was waiting for it. I selected research. And then I think they went off and researched how this game's going to work.
Yeah.
And then it finally came on. And that was with warp. I'm like, I pressed the warp button. I'm like, oh, okay, this won't take long. I was like, goodness me, what is it loading?
There's not enough. There's not that much memory to load stuff into.
And that's why I don't know. It was just painful, wasn't it? So I don't know what's going on. So how do you make the building of a spaceship fun? Firstly, don't make loading it insufferable. I think that's the key. I think bare bones, and for those that like this kind of thing, there might be something here, maybe. It's very crude and very slow, ridiculously slow, in fact, and completely put me off from the get-go because of that. If I were a vampire, this would be a crucifix. But that said, building space stations and things like that is cool.
Yeah.
And so this could have been cool. If anything, this game's kind of way before its time in almost every aspect, actually. Because especially in terms of hardware, if you roll to the future, there's loads of games like this now, loads.
Yeah, you think like Kerbal Space Program
games.
and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, there's tons of them. Yeah, there's one, I think there's even like this space station simulator. There's tons of them. So there's all massive successes. There's loads of stuff like that in these sort of modern games. So they're popular. I think at some stage with this game, the game designers got lost in the depth of their own function. So they've just sat there, like I imagine wires and paper going, we've got to make this work somehow. And it's a bit like that scene in Apollo 13, where they've got to try and figure out how to make something happen. So they're just in a room doing that.
Yep.
And they wanted to add as much as they could to it, which is fine and ambitious, and it's to be applauded. But the hardware limitations are so much, and the slowness of this is so bad that it kills it in its nest like a smashed egg. Yeah. So I think there's a good idea. Building space stations and that is cool, just not like this, unfortunately. No. You're on the wrong platform. You're about 20 years too early for it to be popular and have the 3D dexterity to be able to bolt stuff together fast. So no thanks.
No, I've not seen anything this slow since we played the double.
No, and it's pricey as well at 17 quid a go. So no.
Yeah, $16.95 on it. Ooh,
so that's actually that's the year you have to start playing it, and then 300 years later it'll start.
Yeah. Columbus started this.
Yeah.
This was the brainchild of Leonardo da Vinci.
Exactly.
Oh dear. Yeah, there we go. EOS. It sounds really proggy. Earth Orbit Stations. Sounds like a Yes album, doesn't it?
It does. I was going to say he's exactly a prog album.
Earth Orbit Stations. There we go. That's that one. Let's move along, because our review of that should have just been really slow, just reading out really slowly.
Yeah, just loading in information slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on. And Graham, you can tell us all about Hyber Blob. Hyber Blob. Hyber.
Hyber? Is it Hyper? Yeah. Hyper Blob?
It's actually Hyber Blob.
Is it?
Yeah. I thought it was Hyper Blob from the title screen and from the name in Zapped. I typed it wrong. My fault.
Yeah, I looked up Hyper Blob and it came up as Hyper Blob. Anyway, it doesn't matter. By Sam Manthorpe, who made Out on a Limb.
Yeah.
It's him. And the music is Steve Barrett. It's quite a simple game logic, this. Hyber Blob is set on the planet of Cubos, on which the player works as a tourist guide. Unfortunately, you've got to take care of the Blob Pods tourist group, which are mindless bouncing ball faces. That's not a nice thing to say about anyone, is it? You mindless bouncing ball face. So the game is consisting of 100 side-scrolling levels with differently positioned blocks. Some of those blocks will become stairs, and there's gaps, and the blob pods will bounce from the left to right and only bounce back if they hit or bump into a block. If they fall through a gap, they die. So the player you control a cursor, which you then use to pick up the blocks or remove them and drop them into another place, so you can build a safe path for your blob pods to traverse. There are other special blocks, including immovable blocks, mutant blocks, which cause touching blob to eat up all the blocks it touches, and blocks which disintegrate after blob contact. To complicate things, there is also a time limit for each level. The game plays out on a fairly straightforward screen. So on the as you get through the sort of fairly nice title screen on this, fairly straightforward but nice, and start the game off, you have a fairly clearly indicated icon pointer thing, which moves with a bit of inertia on the joystick, and you blob faces start moving. It's really weird, but the blob faces start this sort of Lemmings style bounce as opposed to Lemmings walking, but they sort of faces, the blob pod faces will sort of move from left to right, bouncing along, and as long as their path isn't hindered by a block that's too high or a gap, and they will continually walk and bounce their way happily across the screen from left to right, and you making sure that their blocks are not impeding them, blocking them, because if you do that, sometimes they'll go backwards, and then if they're going backwards the wrong way and there's a gap, they're going to go down the gap, so you've got to quickly plug that, and you've got to move around fairly quickly in this space in order to make sure that the blobs are able to get from left to right. And it's not as easy as it sounds, because they do hit blocks and go backwards, so you've got to learn to sort of make steps for them. You've got to plug gaps where you think they're going to go and then sort of navigate them out of different spaces. And it's quite clever the way that works, actually. The inertia on the joystick thing takes a little bit of getting used to, because I think that's the only thing that made otherwise, if it had just been click, click, click to do stuff, it would have been too easy. So you do kind of fly across the screen a bit as they're scrolling. And you can scroll right the way across to the end of the screen all the way back while they're still happily bouncing their way across. But, know that they're coming, Lemming style, and they're not going to stop unless they are stopped or they die. So you've got to make sure you get them across. So, like I said, you control it with the joystick, simple fire button to sort of do the block logic, whatever that might be. And you can get your blob pod tourists across the screen. And there's 100 levels to go at here. So there's quite a lot to go. And each one is, sometimes they're deviously and nightmarish designs as well, some of these levels. I got quite far in it. So this is another classic example. Remember, this is £3. This is, I think, a good example of another simple idea done quite well, and also a little bit ahead of its time. It's obviously the precursor to a Lemmings type game, and it's a nice, fresh idea that's well implemented. It's not buggy, this. At least I didn't encounter any bugs, but it's not that buggy. And it does what it's set out to do very simply, very ably, and quite nicely as well. As much as there's quite a lot going on the screens, and you got to move these blocks in and out and sort of drop them in and out, that all works perfectly fine. There's a lot going on. This really real weird of impending blob doom, as these things just kind of happily bounce across, and you've got to think, oh my God, there's a gap, I've got to get rid of the gap, oh my God, I've got to get rid of that block, oh, they're going to go backwards and fall down there. So there's some really sort of panic-stricken logic, and that suits the kind of inertia-based joystick where you're flying around trying to figure stuff out really on the fly, which is quite cool. It's not easy, this game, but it is something that is not so difficult that it puts you off. You'll persist with it, I think, for £3. And it is quite fun. And I thought the presentation here was, considering it's £3, was really good. The graphics, they're a bit odd, but they all work really well, and the game feels well put together, and it's all coherent. The sounds are pretty good too, and I quite like this, and I had quite a lot of fun with it. And you've got to just go with it a bit. Yes, it's that kind of Lemmingsy type game. In our ongoing quest to champion the notion of simple ideas with polish, this fits very neatly into that category, and as such, it's a fun, playable game that is entertaining. More to the point, this is clearly a mobile phone game that's not yet been made, or maybe it has been made. I mean, there's Lemmings out there and stuff like that, but I think it almost plays like a mobile game, like an iPhone or an Android game, sort of, in landscape, waiting to happen, really, because you can imagine yourself zipping about and doing the stuff like that. I think it's just out there. So I like it. I thought this was really good. I never came across it ever.
No.
So £3 for a good, this would pass many a Sunday afternoon. I think you'd go with this because it's quite fun. So I quite liked Hyber Blob. I thought it was a good laugh, and it certainly was a light relief from the 15,000 year wait for Earth orbit station. So nice to get a game that's loaded and you could play it fairly quickly, to be fair. What about you?
I like the same as you. One step closer to Lemmings in this cheapo puzzler as you try and guide a set of bouncing heads along a course by picking up and dropping blocks to keep them safe along their way. A nice idea and perfect budget fodder. The visuals are simple enough, but the bouncing heads have a nice kind of charm, and the blocks for each level are perfectly fine. The level selecting the game starting you from the last level is also a nice touch and avoids repetition of having to do the early levels time and time again. So you're kind of in that loop of trying to perfect a single level, and I like that. I've said that quite a numerous times. I thought the control of the cursor was nice, and I like the fact they got heavier and slower to move the more you picked up. I thought that was a really good touch. So if you picked up 4 blocks, I suddenly realised I was moving slower. I was like, oh, that's really nice. I'd like that. So you had to sort of weigh up. Do I just pick up 2? Because you could pick up 4, couldn't you? Do I just pick up 2 and move fast, or do I need 4 but move slow? And there's that risk reward there. It gets very difficult, I thought, very quickly. And the inertia, as you've said, maybe a little bit too much. But we said Meaviston, because he didn't just do Out on a Limb, he did the detective as well, didn't he? This guy.
That's right.
And do you remember? I think we said about the inertia in the choice window.
That's right.
Yeah. So this guy's got a thing about inertia. He likes his inertia. But for £2, this Proto Lemmings game would certainly have kept me entertained for many a rainy Sunday afternoon. It's well made and original at this point, and shows you do not need to be bothered by swarms of enemies to keep the game interesting. Take note, Action Force. We played this similar sort of thing last week. It was Action Force. In the fact, you had to get that Jeep across, and it was moving across, and you had to build a level around it and get it going and everything like that. But you're constantly being bothered by enemies, and this one just gets rid of that, takes it down to its simple idea, and it's all the better for it. And I really liked the bouncing heads. I thought they're kind of like Lemmings. They kind of had a cute, charming sort of feel to them.
Interesting,
yeah. It was good. I like this. Hyber Blob. Never heard of it, though. Never, ever. So never saw this back then. Never played it. Wasn't sure what to expect. Certainly wasn't anything like Lemmings, but was glad when I booted this up. And like you said, massive relief from slow orbit station, Earth, whatever it was. That was boring. But yeah, this was all right. I quite enjoyed this. It does get tricky, but it's a budget game, and it would have kept you going for ages, I think, if you try and beat these levels. Nice stuff. Yeah. Enjoyed it. Hyber Blob. Who knew? Who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. There we go. Anything more to say on that one?
Nope.
There we go. Let's move on. We've got another cheapie coming up. And that is Pirates in Hyperspace. This is £2. It's got 58%. This is a budget shooter from Alternative Software. And this is the first game by David Saunders and Ashley Routledge. And it has music by Mark Cooksey of Ghosts and Goblins fame, obviously. So like that, what was that Gavin Rayburn one we played a few weeks back with the multiple stages? Which one was it? Enforcer? Terminator?
Yeah, one of them, yeah.
Pick a name, pick something from his video shelf.
Old man fashioning kayak.
Yeah, that one. This is a shooter with multiple stages, each with a different style of play as you attempt to pillage 21 space cargo ships for some form of valuable microscopic plunder. Who knows what that would be? I don't know.
Tiny gems.
Tiny plunder. Whatever the plot, this is £1.99 worth of blasting and stuff. So the first stage, and the one you'll see most of, sees you blasting away at a constant barrage of space debris as it tumbles towards you. They're not aliens, they're not waves, it's just stuff. There's just stuff, and it's coming towards you. Buried in this debris are glowing stars. If you collect 3 of them, it gains you access to the second stage, where you must knock out the defenses of the cargo ship. If you do that, it's onto the third section, which sees you running around the ship in a style reminiscent of the indoor sections of Parallax as you try and recover the plunder. So that's the 3 sections. The first section, as noted, sees you trying to collect the 3 stars to progress. But the way it's played is both... Well, I say it's interesting and it's infuriating. The debris that bombards you starts off just coming from the top. So it's like a vertical shot. There's just stuff coming down from the top and you've got to avoid it, shoot it, whatever. You've only got a limited amount of ammo. You've got 255 shots. You've got to be careful. You can avoid most of it, so it's not too bad. Very soon, though, it switches to coming diagonally from one side without warning, just coming diagonally. So you might be on the left of the screen, and suddenly there's just stuff coming from the left. And so you're trying to dodge that, and then you might be over on the right because you get a bit of thingy, but then it'll just switch to the other side without warning. You're like, and then you get a combination of both. So coming from either side in diagonals and from the top, and then it speeds up as well. So like I said, you've got limited ammo, and this only replenishes when you collect a star. The stars themselves are hard to spot, as they're the same, because all the sprites are the same. They share a color palette. Each level you go through, they change a different color palette. So you have the shading colors, but everything's the same color. So you'll get the gray ones start off with, then you have blue ones, and you have brown ones, and so on and so forth. The stars are the same color, so it's quite hard to pick them out in under the barrage of stuff coming at you. If you get hit by anything, you lose one of your 5 lives, and that's it. So the second section, though, if you do collect the 3, you get to this second section, and what this is, you've got a blank screen at the top of the screen. In the middle, it's like a claw. It's supposed to be the sort of how you join onto the ship or something. But instead of lunar land, you have to basically blast it loads of times. The problem is you're harassed by these 2 enemies that are like fuzzy fields of dots, and they're chasing you around the screen, and you kind of have this weird speed up, slow down control system. It's kind of odd. So you can't hit the top, and if they hit you, if you get hit at this stage, you both lose a life, and you are also catapulted to the start of the next level, so the bombardment section again. So you miss out on the third screen here, which is kind of weird. So you got to go do the first, what's initially that first stage again, just with different coloured sprites. If you do make it to the third section, then if you run into anything, there's you're a little character, so it kind of looks a bit like the Parallax playing thing, and Knight Rider, and we saw it was also ripped off in Knight Rider. Not quite, but similar-ish. It's that small character running around, top-down sort of thing. Bit gauntlet-ish, that sort of stuff, but smaller graphics and smaller. If you contact with anything, if you run into anything, you're instantly killed. And like the second stage, you booted to the start of the shoot-em-up bit again, and that's it. So that's your game. So you do this, 21 times if you want to go through the whole thing trying to get to it. I don't know if you actually collect anything. I kept dying and getting booted back to the main shoot 'em stage. So there's not really too much to this. The font, did you find the font on the title screen and high score table really hard to read due to really poor colour choice?
Yeah, it was just crappily coloured. It was particularly great. It
was really bad. And being kicked back to the start of the first section, it seems only on the next level, it seems punitive because that section gets boring really quickly. As there's not so much waves, just bombardments. There's little thought of focus on it. No, they haven't planned waves. They're just randomly spawning stuff to throw at you. If you'd simply lost a life in the second or third stages, that would have felt fairer. At least you continuing and progressed, and that would have been better. For $1.99, I guess this is okay. It's got some nice presentation on the title screen where it's got like bits where it shows you the scores for shooting the different enemies and things like that. It's got an okay piece of music by Mark Cooksey, and I suppose for their first game it all works. And the fact there's some varieties, there is variety to the stages, that's good to see. It's just the choices made around death in the second or third section that let it down. And obviously, just the fact that there's no real thought to, we'll just randomly spawn stuff and change the direction. Well, we got any waves? No, we're not planning anything. It's just random spawning. It would have put me off playing it quite quickly had I come across this back then. Because I never played it. I never heard of it. And it did. That's what put me off here and now. It's that you lose all your progress. And that second stage is quite tricky to control. The inertia, the thing they put on it, it's not inertia, it's speed up, slow down, and it's weird. What did it get? It got 58%. Yeah, probably about right. I mean, it's not terrible. It all works. I didn't find any bugs, but it's just a bit poorly designed for the first game. But that's what I thought. What about you?
Graphics are all right. Music and sounds passable, I suppose. Matt Cook's in it. Gameplay just felt totally thoughtless.
Yeah.
I mean, stage one is the cha-cha slide, isn't it? It's the come from the left, and then they come from the right. Straight down. Mix it up. Ding, ding, ding. Jump to the left. Ding, ding, ding. And to the right. It's just mindless. Yeah. No, it's just a dodge the rock thing. All right. Stage 2, stupid. Crappy controls made more difficult for no reason. And you sort of shoot the thing and dodge the bullets, if you can call them that now. And then the flick screen walk around where everything kills you was just, again, just pointless, thoughtless. It's all thoughtless. Yeah. You got to do that 21 times? 21 times? Are you having a laugh? No, thanks. I didn't want to do it once. I suppose it's a whole £2. And it is a complete, albeit mindless, all said and done game. It controlled okay, I guess, in the stages that needed it, but it just felt bland and pointless, and just I didn't feel like there was any point. Even if you get past stage 3 and you go to stage 2, it's just the same.
Yes.
And you just think, and I'm just going to be doing this. I've got to do this 21 times, and then what? You just know there's going to be no payoff in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I did notice that some of the collision here was quite dodgy here and there on this.
Yes, it was.
Had a bit of a mind of its own here and there, and every now and again, sprites that would disappear and suddenly reappear from the bottom of the screen underneath you. Like, where are you coming from?
Yeah, and you'd shoot some ones, and other ones would blow up.
Yeah, it was just, it wasn't. There was issues clearly there, and it just wasn't. Well, it didn't keep my interest very long, put it that way. And I think it's because there's the start of something maybe, but it just there wasn't much thought behind it, and that lack of thought, that thoughtlessness that pervades all of the games, just means that you're not really in it for any reason. It's not fun, but it's £2. 58% actually is about right for that, really. I'd probably give it less, maybe bang on 50 or something, but it's just £2. It's better £2 games, so I don't know how this one will fare against
like I said,
those others. But
Gavin Rayburn one the other week was better, where you had the thing shooting out from the sides and stuff, multi-stage thing.
Yeah, so this is just, it's too mindless for it to be in any fun, really. It's just, there's not within it, just an entire level of just dodge differently directional objects on a bad Starfield as well. No excuse for that in bad Starfields. I've seen too many good ones now.
So, we have.
Just it was challenged by its own logic, and that's not good.
No, it wasn't. There we go. That's Pirates in Hyperspace. Another budget one coming up. Graham, tell us all about Sunburst.
This is produced by Racket, created by John M. Phillips. Music here by Nigel Grieve, and the title screen's by Bav. Good old Bav. All right, Bav, do us the title screen, mate. All right, I'll do that. All right. So in yet another 360-degree scrolling shooter, you have to scroll around various systems or levels, avoiding or shooting the attacking aliens so you can seek and destroy the carrier aliens that are transporting energy pods. Once these energy pods are released, you have 10 seconds to collect them up. Collect enough of these to fill your energy meter, and then, Hot Black Desiato and Disaster Area style, you fly up into the sun and vaporize, appearing on the next stage to do more of exactly the same, only with slightly more difficulty. Now, I couldn't find a lot of documentation about this game at all. I tried to find an inlay or a description, and I found some images of the inlay that just had an advert for more of their games in it. Didn't seem to feature any instructions whatsoever, barring some vagaries. So what I've gathered there is basically what I can gather from the depths of the dark internet that we're in. That said, the graphics on it, of course, I think they look quite nice, actually. The scrolling's good, backgrounds and the sprites kind of work well. There's some nice details in here. There's a nice shadow on your spaceship as you fly across the sort of blobby landscape, the sort of details in the background. The background you fly over is actually quite nice. The controls are quite responsive. It's back to that up-down for accelerating, decelerating, left-right rotational, which works in these games. So no more of that horrible point to the top left and you instantly going that way and that horrible juddery. This is back to that nice smooth scrolling with just a fire button that just shoots. Nice and keep it simple like that. I'm not diving underneath the scenery or trying to navigate through networks. It's just that. You are under constant attack, and that is exhausting. And there are background details to avoid too, but there is a playable game in here, I think. It's just a bit on the repetitive side, which is also sort of landing on the usual budget title or budget game things, which is they do one or two things and that's the game design done. So, they don't put a lot more thought into it because in the back of their minds, they're thinking, it's only going to be £2. Let's not write the full novel. Let's just give them a chapter. And so you don't get lots of game design. You get sort of fairly nice looking. It's a shooter. It's a decent shooter, I suppose, and it's of its own ilk, but it is budget price. And Zap said there was some collision bugs in it. I never encountered any when I played it, but it doesn't mean there weren't any. So it might have some bugs in there, probably similar to the other bugs. Multiplex and sprites and things tends to be the undoing of most of these coders, it seems. I think if you'd been given more to do in this, or this had a more focused overall game arch, with its looks and playability, this could have been something really cool. This could have been actually something quite interesting. If you added upgrades to this, for example, this would have just made it a bit better. Or if you just added a little bit more, but they didn't add that little bit more. If this was in a 100-meter race, this isn't going to win. This is going to come like fifth. Who remembers the fifth person? It's still a great achievement, but it's fifth. So as it stands with that limit, or the limited option, and it plays okay, and it looks nice. For a Sunday afternoon for a couple of hours, you might want to go around shooting and collecting the pod things and flying into the sun. I don't know, you might want to do that. The audio was okay. It was a bit dry, the music, but it was generally from the title screen to the option screen and stuff, and the production level belied its price, I think. It looks nicer than it cost, but it's just a pity there wasn't a bit more to do, because I think therein lies the problem with it. How long are you going to want to keep collecting energy pods and flying into the sun for? Because you're going to be doing that endlessly on this. And it didn't take long, really, to get past quite a few of the levels. It's a bit easy as well, albeit that the flying enemies are bloody annoying. So that's what I thought. £2 worth of 360 shooter. At least it scrolled nicely, but there just wasn't a lot of game in it. And I guess that's the $1.99 curse. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's John Phillips, isn't it? Like you said, so he's obviously put all his effort into Nebulus. Because the same guy, but he's obviously done this on the cheap as well. Maybe this is his palette cleanser before or afterhand.
Yeah, he might have just done this years ago and just released it as like, oh yeah, I have that.
Yeah. You blast enemies that spawn around the sun, trying to take out those who drop energy spores and yada yada. And once you've got enough, once you've filled up your meter, you dive into the sun. I quite like that idea. I quite like the idea of it. It's quite a decent thing. Like as you've rightly said, it's polished. It's really polished. This guy does polish, his game. So even though there's a small game here, it's well polished. It controls well, and as you've rightly said, speed up and slow down, and good rotation on the ship. But exactly like you said, it just gets a bit samey quite fast. And I found the fact you have to constantly go near the spawning points, which destroy you on touch, makes it a bit trickier than it needs to be. Just, you flying into stuff. But it feels like this feels like a early game, but it feels like a yearning for twin sticks.
Yeah, probably.
I think, if you did this with a twin stick option now, we've got that. I think this would be a really nice little game. You could do something quite good with this. Gathering of resource to burst the sun is a nice idea, as I said, and it looks really nice. And as you've rightly said, great animated sprites and really lovely shading on that ship as you're going around, and it spins around. Yeah. So it's really nicely drawn, well-drawn backgrounds. But it's just like what you've said. Once you've seen one or two levels, you've kind of, you've seen them all. And again, maybe some power-ups to give the player more choice to how to approach the levels would have been good to see, for a bit of variety and some different things to do and ways to approach the enemies and stuff rather than just shooting. But for a budget title, great presentation. I say there's a suitable amount of budget blasting action, and it would have kept you going on a Sunday afternoon, I think, for sure. I don't think you'd have been annoyed playing this. I think 67% looking at some of the other ones when they've got 50-odd is a bit harsh on this for a £2, but not much more, but maybe a bit more. But there you go. It's a nicely presented, some really nice bits and bobs around the edge, but it just, I think you've hit the nail rightly on the head. It's £2 worth of stuff, and I think that's that. There you go. Anything else?
No.
Sunburst. There we go. Got one more left. One more. Let's move on into it. It's a big one. Maybe it's a big one. I don't know. Bangkok Knights. £9.99. Bangkok Knights. 90% Sizzler. It's our final game of 1987, and it's brought to us by System 3, and probably one of the 64s made another technical highlight for the time. This one, from what they're saying. So Bangkok Knights sees large, well-animated fighters beating the crap out of each other in a kickboxing tournament in Bangkok. There you go. This was programmed by Nick Pelling under the name Orlando M. Pilchard. I don't know why, but it is Nick Pelling from what I've read around. He did Fire Track.
Yeah, he did that under the same name.
Yeah, which weird, isn't it? It has graphics by Mr. Last Ninja, Hugh Riley, and music throughout by Rob Hubbard. Not seen much from recently. So this is a real dream team of talent here to bring us this beat 'em up. And according to the manual, and this is straight from the manual, and no small amount of hyperbole, this is the first in a new generation of true life fighting simulations featuring larger than normal animated characters set against panoramic backgrounds, giving us a level of realism previously unattained on home computers. There you go. That's straight from the manual. So, that's what it says. So to this end, you play an up-and-coming Thai boxer, hoping to become the undisputed Bangkok Knight. And to attain this, you must beat your way through 8 different opponents. The first 4 of these are on the way to Lumpini Stadium, whilst the last 4 take place in the stadium itself under the bright lights and in front of the big crowds. So when the game boots up, you have a rather busy title screen. That title screen was like, made my eyes ache a bit.
There's a lot of text on that.
There's a load of text, yeah. I think most of the memories in the game, so they probably didn't have a lot to do in there. And it's a decent bit of Hubbard music. It's all right. I'm not a massive fan of the music in this, but it's okay. But you can choose to play without music or with easy control or hard control method, and I'll come to them a little bit later. You can also enter 4-digit number codes to alter the colour of the backgrounds if you wish, which is strange, weird, but okay, whatever. So the game is controlled by joystick, and you have 16 moves at your disposal using the usual 8 directions with or without the fire button pressed. However, this game offers 2 types of control, easy and hard. In both modes, movement is done without the fire button pressed. This is a full 3D fighter, so you can move up, down, left, right, and the diagonals as well. So similar to what we saw to Renegade, really. If you imagine Renegade, that kind of control method, it's like that, except with the fire button. We use the fire button in this. So it's like that. With the fire button pressed, in hard mode, you must do all the moves yourself using all 8 directions. There are 8 offensive moves you can do. I'm not going to list them all, but they're the usual stuff of flying kicks, punches, headbutts, arm chops, kicks, low punch, whatever. In easy mode, you only use the compass points, so left, right, up, and down. And the game decides what move to do based on the distance between you and your opponent. So this has been done, it's a nice touch, this, and is, as the manual states, because diagonals are hard to get accurately on some joysticks. So they've built this in, which is, I guess, that's quite nice. So the game is doing a bit of it for you, a bit of heavy lifting, but you can do it yourself if you want. So anyway, having chosen which method on the title screen, a press of the fire button gets us going, and you're up against the 8 opponents. So your 8 opponents are Manchu Man, Dan Fists, Bambo Man, Mucho Mike, Killer Kale, Daddy Kale, Siam Sally, and BB Butler. Once into the fight, it's best of 5 to win and progress to the next encounter. Each character has the energy bar and stamina called a heart power and punch power. As you punch, your punch power goes down, or punch or kick, whatever, your punch power goes down, and if this runs out, you need to do nothing briefly to gain some energy. So it's your stamina, basically. If you run out of stamina, you can't kick. You leave yourself open, you stood there going, ugh. So the objective is to land as many blows as you can and reduce the opponent's heart power, read health, to 0, thus knocking them out. Do this 3 times, and you win the bout and can proceed. The number of wins you have in each bout is also shown along with the timer on the UI at the bottom. And if this runs out, then the one with the most energy left wins that bout or that round. So what we have here is an early example of what we go and see in games like Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur et al. And is kind of building on what we also saw in Fight Night, that multi-personality style fighter. So the big point about this is the graphics. We'll come to them in a minute. We'll talk about them in a minute. But if you think about how Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur are all about characters fighting from stage to stage, you can move around in 3D, you've got lots of different moves at your disposal, you've got a health bar, you've got a timer. If no one's knocked out by the end, whoever's got the most health wins that round. You can have best of 5, best of 3, best of 1. It's that. Okay, these kind of games would come, this is an really early example of that. So I can see, that hyperbole in the manual. Okay, there's maybe some points to that. I mean, obviously, they didn't know this was what would come down the line, but you can see where they're going with this. And this personality style of fighter, I don't know if we've seen much in the way of personality style fighters. I mean, we had Frank Bruno, which we don't talk about.
Yeah, not outside of the bloody boxing games now.
We haven't really I know Fight Night was one, but I can't think of Baron Wiggins, but I can't think of much. Most of the fighting games we have are just international karate, and it's the same characters in it, sort of fighting each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no doubt in the graphics and presentation on this. It all feels top notch with loads of nice effects as backgrounds and players wipe in with a Venetian blind effect, and the speed at which everything moves is also a testament to the coding here. The graphics themselves in game, which they take up most of the screen, the UI's at the bottom, but the graphics take up most of the top sort of 2/3 of the screen. They're big, they're bold, and they're well defined. I suppose the There's a little bit of that. It's not quite the same, but that Thai boxing game was similar kind of viewish, but this is much bigger, much bolder. And the animation spot effects are all well done. So essentially what you get this scrolling panoramic screen. So the actual fight exists in full 3 dimensions. So like Renegade, I suppose, but you're only fighting one person, and you can move up and down, left and right. And if you move to the left, the screen will scroll. The actual arena you fight in is bigger than the actual view you've got of it. So it scrolls around quite a lot. So that's all good. So the graphics that I said, the big, bold, the well-defined, the music's okay, burbles along in the background. I don't think it's one of Hubbard's best. And you fight, you throw your punches, you do all this stuff. The issue here, though, it really is the fighting itself. I just don't think it's that good. If you come fast on the back of IK Plus, and we have, we played IK Plus within the last few episodes, and the impact that imparts on each hit and blow, when you smack someone in the lower back with a low punch, you really feel that punch in the animation and the sound effect, and as they go down onto their face, you really feel it. And here it just feels tame in comparison. And the allusion to Fight Night here is even more marked. This feels like Fight Night in 3D, I thought. It's just, same style of fighters, over the top animation at times, and it's also rather easy in either joystick mode, and you can fight your way through to the end in just a few goes. So the idea of any kind of single player lasting challenge is completely lost. And everything I read around, just people go, it's too easy. It's dead easy. This is just, you just walk on, just keep punching. You'll just knock them out. It's dead easy. The moves as well, they felt a little weak. And they feel like they lack impact. You just kind of get that sort of like that move where they go, they kind of jerk back a little bit, and that's kind of it. There's no real oomph to anything in this, and that leads into the multiplayer where there's no real joy to be had in this. And what we have here is it's a button masher, really. It feels like who can spam. It feels like more like Night Games. Night Games had a similar sort of issue as what we said with Night Games. Night Games had you walloping on each other, but it felt there is a bit weightless and stuff. And it is really who can spam the button the fastest, and you'll just be the winner. I found there to be little strategy to the fighting side and get as many hits in as you can, as quick as you can. And it's really a bit of a shame, really. As if this felt a little more considered, it would have been a lot better. IK Plus works because you have to choose your attacks and the time to attack. The strategy there, timing, and you can't just go in all guns blazing. Here, it's just a constant slap fight as you try and out-hit your opponent. And that's the only enjoyment from this comes from the technical side of things, because it does look nice and it's impressive. And it looks great in screenshots with the, when you get the woman at the start coming on with the billboard and everything, all the presentation around it, and it's all really nice. Once that's lost, though, you have a rather moribund fighting game on your hand. It's not terrible, and I see a lot of people saying this is proof that Street Fighter 2 et al. Should have been better versions on the C64. Maybe they're right, I don't know. The point here is that the fighting is not that good. So either way, what we're left with is a pretty, but essentially quite empty fighting game that tires quicker than you want it to. The heart power in this goes down far too fast for me. That's what I thought about Bangkok Knights. I think I played it back then, but I don't remember playing it very much, and so I'm guessing I felt the same back then. There's not a lot to draw me back to this because it's very easy to just walk your way through it. How about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I never played. I had this because it was like one of the big go-to games to get, and so I had this on disc at the time. And obviously, it's System 3 pulling out more fighting games. It's weird that they would bring out a fighting game so soon after IK Plus, which is odd. And I also think that there's, for all the same reasons as you, while there's a great presentation here and the production is clearly very slick, it isn't without its kind of issues around tedium, is it? So it's this big, mighty, huge sprites, lots of self-acclamations of it being super realistic and all the rest of it. And as we've come to expect from System 3, the production is there with its slick graphics, the crazy good music, presentation here, everything's top-notch. Really, they are huge sprites in that sense in this kind of game. And the way it looks and plays in that way, the way the camera moves and the animations, limited as they are, it certainly is impressive to look at. It makes for great screenshots, doesn't it, on the side of a box?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And then you've got a few samples in there, haven't you? There's kind of there's a few. The ringside bell sound was weird when that kind of audience. It's good that they do that, but you're not ringside, so I don't know quite where the bell comes from. And there's that woman stood there. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And the backdrops do look good. They look like enlarged versions of the Last Ninja graphics, but they do look quite good generally. And it all moves pretty fast. I mean, there's no denying that. It's all that part is all there. So the problem for me with this, firstly, is, as you rightly say, it's too easy. I mean, I picked this up after I don't know how many years of last playing it and beat the first 5 fighters within about 20 minutes. And it was no challenge. I wasn't really trying hard. I was just really, and this was in easy mode, I have to say. And I did try it in both modes, and it was actually easier in the more difficult mode. Hard mode, I just kicked their butts every time. I mean, I got straight through the whole game. It was easy. Mm-hmm. So the game is too easy right off the bat. And I worked my way through it all. Secondly, the controls, whether it's mindless whether it's easy joy or whether it's hard. It's just the fighting here is just mindless. It doesn't feel like you're connecting. It's more like tokenistic joystick waggling and button bashing, as you say. This doesn't feel like I'm selecting the moves like I do in IK Plus. And I have to say, I can't help but compare this with IK Plus because they're the two most recent fighting games I've come across, one-on-one type beta. IK Plus is still way better than this in every capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of that kind of easy joystick thing. I don't think the rationale makes any sense whatsoever. I never came across a joystick that had difficulty with diagonals my whole life of using joysticks. No. So I'm not sure what BS that was. I think it was just a way of them being able to add an extra option. And it's not clear that you press F7 to do that right off the get-go either. You have to go to the instructions for that because that title screen is full of stuff, but not full of how to start the game. It's just it's long and off you go.
Yeah.
So the main issues I have with this is the precision. The precision of IK Plus is not here. IK Plus is a precise game. You move how you want it to move. You have to choose the moves and you have to block and be careful. None of that is here. It's just a throwaway masher. So I just basically beat the players I did by going towards them, then just going slightly either above them or below them and repeatedly kicking them and punching them until they could do no more.
That's what I did as well, yeah.
And clearly that's just the way. All the moves feel a bit throwaway, in a similar way to Yao Kung Fu, actually, in the sense that I know they're not similar games in that way, but the way that the moves you could just do 50 moves and it wouldn't matter. As long as you get a hit, it doesn't matter. With the IK Plus, when you do a certain move, you get a certain reaction, and that's very, very important in a fighting game. If you do a crotch punch in IK Plus, you bloody well know you've done it. If you kick him out of the air, you get a nice crick sound and he's flat on his back. Those are important because you've made that choice, that you've made that action, and it's made that connection, and there's an entire cause and effect loop, which is very satisfying to the player. If you just go in there and sort of waggle your arms around like a maniac and, by pure luck nor judgment, you just kind of keep hitting him in the face a lot and eventually he goes down. There's no skill in that. That's just dull. And that's really what this is. And I think that they could have just put a bit more thought into the fighting, which is kind of critical for this game. I mean, there's some good things about this. I mean, I don't know if there's a two-player option for this. I suppose there must be. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there is. Yeah.
And I imagine two-player, you might get some fun out of that because I can imagine that could be quite good, Okay, but any game like this could be good in two-player. IK Plus is a great two-player game in that respect, probably better than this. And it's got that single-player campaign, and that does have characters, and they do have individual things, like special moves and things they do. One of them swung his arm around wildly. The other one blew dust in my face. I can't help but feeling these guys have watched bloody Bloodsport before they built this.
Yeah, massively so. Yeah, it's the genre. Yeah,
it's got hints of Bloodsport in it.
Kickboxer.
Yeah, totally got some of that vibe in it. And this predates the Kickboxer game that came out, didn't it? Because there was a kickboxing game, I think, on the Amiga. Maybe I don't know if it ever came out on 64. But anyway, so their fighting styles did differ somewhat, but they'd still fall back on the same, 3 or 4 moves generally. Even when they were attacking, there wasn't a great deal of variation to them, and there wasn't a lot of landing moves. I did loads of kicks and stuff that were very hit and miss whether they landed. Most of the opponents I beat, I just punched them out repeatedly until they were just on the floor.
That's all I did. Because why would you do anything more when that worked fine?
Exactly. So they did have some weird moves, and maybe there's a little bit more of that sort of because obviously there aren't characters in IK Plus or anything like that, but you don't need that really. Here they've put that in, and that's good. And it, like you said, it is the precursor to games that come along like that have more of that, I guess. But for me, this just lacks all of the things that made IK Plus the really great fighting game it is, which is make it about the fighting. It doesn't have to be about the production. IK Plus is an amazingly produced game, but it keeps the focus on the fighting and the successful connection and the kineticism of fighting in that environment. You really feel it. You feel like you're in control of your player and that you're up against it. And maybe it's the same thing over and over again, but there's no problem with that. But this game lacked that playability and that cohesion. And in all fairness, it's just more show and tell. And I'm not saying it's bad because it's not bad. It's just, and it is quite good. It's just missing something really important. Fundamentally, of course, the most important thing it's missing is that without that real connection between you and the fighting moves and your ability to pull them off, this is no more of a fighting game than doing a dance in front of somebody and accidentally kicking them in the nuts, which has probably happened on many an occasion. Decent music from Rubberbud, maybe. But other than that, nah, not for me, this one. Not for me.
No. Strange one to end on. Got 90% Sizzler. They were obviously wowed by the amazing visuals and everything and the presentation, but when it came down to it, vacuous, I think is the best way to describe that. Yeah, so a bit of a shame, that one. I thought we'd have a better one to end on. We got 90% the Sizzler. Bit of a shame. I thought it was going to be better. I seem to remember, I think it's one of them games you remember for its visuals and then you don't remember for its gameplay because it has a serious lack of it.
It's funny because it just reminded me there was other games like this that should have been really good and they're not quite there. That Thai boxing game was a bit like this, but these are zoomed in. And then there was that Uchimata was another where it just ended up, it looked really good and it's probably amazing to get into, but I just ended up doing loads of button scrambling and just ended up falling over a lot. This one, I just button mashed and beat everything in the game. I'm like, well, if you can do it that easy, then what's the point?
Yeah, there was something else as well that was like that. I can't remember what it was, but so it's like I said, coming so fast on the back of IK Plus.
That's what's weirded me out the most. I mean, there's inevitable comparisons between the two from the same people. I mean, and the thing is, Archer McLean must be looking at it going, really?
Yeah, what you doing?
I made that the greatest fighting game ever, and you released that, and you're saying that's the most realistic? Are you stupid?
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It was his last C64 game. He's like, batter you.
Batter you, indeed. There were a couple of games we didn't look at from the budget section, and the reason for that is because we've reviewed them before.
It was Beachhead 2, was there? Wasn't it?
Yeah, there was Beachhead 2, and there was On-Court Tennis.
Yeah, I've seen them.
So
refer you back to episode 1 to 5, is it, for them?
I think so, yeah. Beachhead 2 must be like, well, they're both really early. I think whenever we covered issue 4.
1 or 2, I think.
And I think On-Court Tennis was episode 2, part 1.
Yeah, something like that. Back when we did it then.
Yeah, so go way back and you'll see them there. Anyway, so we didn't look at them again, so that's that. That's it. We've got a couple of crap Berts.
We do. Yes, I'm looking at Bone Crunch. Goodness me, right now.
Right, before you read the text at the bottom, what would you say the two things are, the green and the orange thing in this thing?
Well, they reminded me of the blobby monster from Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Or maybe goblins of a sort, I don't know.
Goblins, ogres, that sort of thing, aren't
that
they?
sort of shape, yeah.
They're dragons.
Eh?
It says, you are Bono.
Wings.
You are Bono, a friendly dragon residing in a picturesque... I love the fact you called Bono as well. That made me laugh quite a lot. Residing in a picturesque sea castle. As a shrewd business dragon, keen on nice little earners, you make your living by selling soap to the giant monsters who bathe in the sea surrounding the castle.
Yeah, okay. It looks a bit weird, doesn't it? I didn't get dragon from that at all.
No.
I mean, he's got arms, like really humanoid-y looking arms. I mean, they're not very well drawn because they're really wibbly-wobbly. So he looks like he's made of jelly, but he's got arms. Dragons have wings.
Yeah. And
he
also I like
wings.
I like the fact there's a prize for everyone who completes the game.
Yeah, little Walkman.
Red Walkman.
Is that a Walkman or radio? Is that a portable radio?
Yeah.
The ultimate prize, a portable FM radio. Yes. Radio on the move.
We are unfortunately too late to enter because the closing date was 30th of April, 1988.
Time machine.
Yeah, so this is full of strategic puzzles and problems. I like the last one. It says humorous, witty, a barrel of laughs.
Yeah.
You know what that means, don't you?
It's crap, but not funny.
Not really funny at all.
No, because it's one of those ones. It looks like one of those ones where the people who made it thought they were being really funny.
Yeah, and I don't like that. A soap opera not to be missed right at the bottom. It makes no sense. None of this makes any sense.
And I think if you have to label and identify what's going on in your screens, then your screens aren't very good. And in the top right, it says Bono takes the skeletons to a cauldron. Right, so that's what's happening in that because I can't make it out because it's impossible. And then it says Bono. Is it Bonner? Bono's partner, Fozzie restrains a monster. They look pretty much like the same things happening in both. I don't know. It looks crap.
Yeah,
utterly crap.
That's a proper crap.
Yeah,
it's a mess of things.
It is. It's a combination of badly drawn items that make no sense in context whatsoever. So he's in Bono's clothing company, steering a cauldron full of human remains in what looks like a bucket of sperm,
which is washing all over Fozzie's
which
feet.
is washing, and then in the background is who is the one in the background because he's got hold of a sleeping thing. I don't get what's happening there. Is he strangled? Is that the corpse? Is that dead?
I think the orange one is Fozzie.
Right, and then he's got a key by his feet, and then he's another one in the background putting a towel behind his head.
Because you're living by selling soap to the giant monsters who bathe in the sea.
Ah, okay, right. Yeah, it says it's at the bottom, a soap opera. Not to be missed. I beg to differ. I miss every soap opera, including this one. End. Communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's not a dragon. I'm sorry, that's not. Dragons don't have chins. Not like that. Not like that.
No. And have you noticed as well, in the orange one, his knees look like eyes.
Yes. He does. He's got weird feet. Everything's wrong. You know, it's anatomy of these dragons is he seen a dragon? He has read about dragons, right? And somebody must have looked at this poster and gone, right, you are aware of what a dragon is, right? Oh yeah, blobby creature, arms, legs, staring at cauldrons and that with the big sticks, boggly eyes.
Have you seen the Welsh flag?
You've seen the Welsh flag? Yeah, green, blobby creature with fangs. Have you read Lord of the Rings? So you've seen Smaug. You've heard of Smaug. Oh, yeah, big dragon.
Green, blobby creature, likes gold.
Yeah, bloody creature. Where's badges? Right, okay. Okay, yeah, I think our idea of dragon and yours is not the same.
We need a new artist.
And with good cause.
Absolutely. With modern technology, we don't need an artist. Look.
Oh, look at this. Look at these dragons I've made. Yeah,
They
right,
put this into some kind of AI art generator in 1987, and this is what it chucked out as a dragon.
It's terrible. Classic
It is bad.
crapvert, though. Classic crapvert.
Yeah, you'll like the next one.
We're going to come across that, surely, at some point, then.
I'm guessing we will play this game.
Oh, God help us.
Yeah, but we'll play the next one.
So, oh, dear. No.
I had to include this for you as a way to round out the year. Here's the advert for
posed for that
Nightmare.
picture. I think he posed for that picture. Right, firstly, all right, just get the actual logo. Right? Don't draw it, and then don't draw it so it's wrong. Because if you notice, the text is getting smaller as it goes towards the end, which means that it's just someone's hand drawn that logo. Now, admittedly, if they've shaded it correctly and it's very detailed, and for some reason there's a gloopy drip coming off the I don't get why, and off the E, which makes no sense because I think they're meant to be blood drips, but they're yellow. I don't know. It looks like candle wax anyway, but it's badly drawn. Then you've got the hand-drawn picture of Traegar. I suppose it looks like Traegar. They've captured his wangy eye perfectly in that, haven't they?
Not sure what the ghostly skull is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a fart. He's leaning over.
It's what's escaping from his pants.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the look he gives when he farts. That's his fart look. So that's definitely the case.
It's so hot, it's melted the title above his head, and that's why it's dripping.
So no, what made me laugh? I mean, that is obviously itself hilarious, and also the tagline there: your best ever nightmare" makes no sense in this game because nightmare's not spelt that way. But
can I just say as well, I want to know what the rock monster is behind the back left because it looks like a rock monster's face in the top left.
Yeah, I think that's meant to be. It's the talking wall, isn't it?
It took me ages to realise that was his chair. I just thought it was a cutout of the backdrop. It's really flat.
It's flat, and it's like clearly the IKEA version of the throne.
And does Traegar have trees growing out of him?
Yes, in this version he does. Why has he got trees growing out of him? Yeah, that's weird.
Know.
Why?
I don't know.
That. Yeah, he's got a tree growing out of his arm.
Well, multiple trees on both arms.
No wonder he's farted. Right. If you look at the images of the actual TV show, there's a horrific one where there's just Traegar's face.
Yeah, massively.
Can you imagine him describing that in the game? So you walk into a corridor, oh my God, it's Traegar's head. Caution, team.
Why isn't your best ever nightmare, which is terrible, why isn't it spelled with a K?
I know, I just said that a minute ago. Yeah, it didn't make any sense whatsoever.
And why has it got 2 exclamation marks?
And why is it in that typeface? Why is it not in the actual nightmare
in the middle?
Typeface? It's just stupid. And it's such a lame thing to say. It's your best ever anything is rubbish, isn't it? Not like live your nightmares or experience all of those things. Your best ever nightmare. Some idiot thought of that. This is up there with services and all the logos of the 90s. John's Gas Services Limited. It's up there with those kind of creative nonsense.
But this is from Activision, so I'm not sure this is going to be good.
Cactivision, back
Look
again.
Look at those graphics as well. They're really bad.
Take all of the excitement of chroma key based animations and all of that and convert that into a blue screen monstrosity with an orange monocolor bloody Traegar. No. That is his album, I think. That's his first album he released. Monochromatic Traegar.
It's just 2 notes. Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, forever.
I just don't get why did they hand draw everything? And why did they put it on that weird wooden frame on the left? It's really weird. And them candles, those stupid candles. It's like, it doesn't make it dungeony because you put bloody candles on it.
I don't know. It is terrible, isn't it?
No, yeah. I mean, aside from the fact that the top right-hand screen from the TV show looks like a kid's being menaced by a giant bauble. Then the thing is, you look at that, it's like, that's the TV, and then you look at the images underneath it, it make you not want to buy it. You'd be like, that looks shit compared to the TV show.
Yeah, don't show me what I could have won.
No, awful, bloody awful, goodness me. And yeah, like you said, his throne is featureless. It's a bland throne. He's the king of nothing.
Yeah, he melted. It's like, it's not the Iron Throne, is it? He just carved that from a bigger throne.
And he's been sat there so long, trees have grown through him painlessly. I don't get that. That's really weirded me out, that. I don't. When you noticed that, I'd never noticed it till then either. When you said, "Look, he's got one growing out his arm," and he really has. It's pushed its way through his shirt.
He's got multiple ones on both arms.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And when they've taken a tree guard and sort of, he's got tree in it, so let's just have trees in him.
Yeah, he's guarding trees.
Yeah, a large percentage of that tree trunk's going where the sun don't shine, but look of his eyes. So, no wonder he's farted out a ghoul.
A ghostly ghoul.
Yeah, horrible, terrible. But a classic crap to end this episode with, really.
Yeah, and to round out 1987 with. I knew you'd like that one, so I put it there. Anyway, let's we've got the chart, our last chart of the year. This is from Commodore User, December 1987. In at number 10, new entry is Bubble Bobble. Up to number 9 is Back to the Future. It's got to be a budget re-release.
It's a budget release, yeah.
Down to number 8 from 4 is World Class Leaderboard. New entry at number 7 is Indiana Jones.
Oh, goodness.
Up to number 6 is Soccer Boss. What's that? Just what it says on the tin.
I dread to think.
Yeah. Down to number 5 is Renegade. Down to number 4 is Kickstart 2. Up to number 3 is Joe Blade. New in at number 2 is Micro Rhythm Plus. I never knew there was a Micro Rhythm Plus.
Yeah, I remember the plus, but I can't remember why it was a plus. I think you could save things, and I can't remember.
Probably more drum samples, maybe.
Yeah, something like that, maybe. Yeah.
And staying at number 1 for Christmas and the New Year, Arcade Classics.
Yep, very good.
There we go. Rest of the chart. Number 11 is International Karate. 12 is Football Manager, still stinking up the place. Cricket International at 13. Super Sprint, new entry at 14. On-field football, 15. On-court tennis, 16. Uchimata, weird. Must be a budget re-release. Alternative, 17. Last Ninja down to 18. Head Coach. Oh, that was so bad. At 19. And Super Robin Hood sticking around at number 20. Again, another one we haven't looked at or seen yet. There we go. That's it. That's the year done.
It is incredible. So many games. So much shit. So much licensed shit.
Yeah, it really has been the year of that. But we'll get into all that next week, I think, when we talk a bit more in depth about the year. It's been a long episode, this one. We've been going for a while. Long recording.
That's some big old games in there.
Yeah, so next week, obviously, we have our Bread Bin Awards. So we'll be giving you what we think are the best, the worst, the strangest, the craziest of all kinds of things of 1987. We'll be voting for them, and we'll see how that goes. God knows what else is going on. And then that's next week. Have we got anything more we want to discuss here? Patreon. We've got a Patreon. If you do want to sign up, we know that times are hard at the moment. We get it. We understand. So, there's no any obligation to sort of sign up. If you do wish to donate, there's a level that's just £1, which helps us out. There's a higher level which gets you access to the Discord, early access to the episodes, which release early, and all things like that. So, advert-free episodes and stuff like that. So, and it helps us out massively, and we hugely appreciate it. So if you wish to do that, that would be great. You go to patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. And that would be coolio. If not, rate reviewers on iTunes, I guess, and things like that, and places. Leave a review. Mentions on Twitter. That's always cool. If you're listening to us, if you're giving us, where have you listened to us? If you listen to us in strange places, that's always good. If you're in the bath though, don't post a picture. That would be bad. What else? If not that, just tell a friend. If you have a person that you know who's into retro stuff, even if it's not into C64 stuff, there's plenty of content here for all kinds of stuff. So tell people, they might give us a listen, and that's cool. It helps us grow and reach more people and just generally be good. That's it. This has been a long recording. I'm tired. It's very hot this week and I haven't slept much.
Oh golly, it's hot today.
Oh golly, it's hot today. Too hot in the hot tub. Too hot.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it really is. Do we have anything more we wish to say before we do next week's Bread Bin Awards?
No, I think we can happily reflect on the whole of the year in the Bread Bin Awards as we normally do. We have obviously a little bit where we look back. Yeah. It's been an epic journey of 1987, and there's been some highs, there's been some lows, there's been a lot of in between and a lot of shite. But along the way, there has been some real great experiences, and so let's chat about them next time. And it's going to be hard to pick some of these games. It really is.
It really is. Yes, indeedy. But here we go. On that note, I think we finish. So, as ever, I've been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Reddings.
And you've been listening to Zapped to the Past, and we will bring you our roundup and awards of 1987 next week. So see you then. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.